This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
And we are live on a Wednesday. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live, 97.3ESPN.com, through our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter feeds. What's going on, everybody? Well, we know the whole Eagles schedule. You don't need the primetime show tonight. I got the whole thing, and I'm going to share it with you in just a couple of moments here. Jam-packed busy. Love a Wednesday show. Mike McGarry, Jason Fitz, Paul Hudrick, Geoff Mosher. Man, the NFL schedule week 1. The whole thing has been released. So we've got to do it, right? One thought on every game. Casey Joyner tonight at 5. Right? One thought every game. Casey Joyner tonight at 5 o'clock here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. All right, so the entire Eagles schedule has been released. You can go check it out on our website, 973ESPN.com. We literally just freshly posted the brand new schedule. It is out there, and it is ready to go. You can take a look at it. I think the only thing missing are the times. I think we know the times. Now, these games are not official yet. The only game that is official is the first game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons. They are playing 1 o'clock against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta to start the year. So you get a nice dose of Kyle Pitts to start things off, Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley with the secondary that still doesn't have a piece. Oh, but I got news on that too. Coming in just a second. Over in the video chat, Jeff Bone and Pookie, what's going on? Why does everyone keep saying we have an easy schedule? Because by winning percentage of the teams they play, they have the easiest schedule in the league. 430 is the winning percentage of the cumulative winning percentage of the teams they played last season. And it's not close. The next closest team is 450, which was Dallas. So Philadelphia has the easiest schedule in the league by winning percentage. Dallas has the second easiest schedule in the league by winning percentage. But that's why you're seeing these articles about the Eagles having the easiest schedule in the league. It's by winning percentage. Now, I will go down this schedule and tell a couple things that, and by the way, Jeff Bone, people did not say they had an easy schedule last year. That thing was brutal. When that thing came out, we said, oh, my Lord, this thing is going to be treacherous. They had that stretch of games where they had to play Green Bay, Seattle, New Orleans, and it was boom, boom, boom. And then you had Cleveland that ended up being pretty good. You had Arizona that was good. You know, that was a brutal schedule last year. They had one of the more difficult schedules in the league last year. This one, they only play 4 teams. The entire schedule has 4 teams on it that had a winning record last year. That is it. They had 4 teams that had a winning record on the schedule this season. That's it. So keep in mind, this doesn't mean anything. These teams are completely changed. Like we'll go through, Atlanta won 4 games last year. San Francisco won, 5, 6 games last year? Well, they had a lot of injuries. So there's a difference between San Francisco this year and last year, you would think. Now, they're going with the rookie quarterback. They're going to have a rookie quarterback playing his second ever NFL game. The Eagles play San Francisco in week 2. This is unconfirmed. The Twitter handle @LeaksNFL has been leaking out the entire schedule. And for the most part, most people are confirming that these games are accurate, but that won't be figured out till tonight. The Eagles have tweeted out that officially they will play the Falcons at opening night. The Falcons have also tweeted out that they will play the Eagles on opening day, not night. It's a 1 o'clock game on Fox. The entire week 1 schedule has been leaked out. I think they basically said, hey, all you guys, Fox, CBS, you can all put out your week 1 schedules. So this is the quote-unquote non-confirmed Eagles schedule, if you will. For those of you who want to plan a road trip, I guess you could do that again. It looks like the Eagles are going to have a full house. They announced last night, that they will open up the Lincoln Financial Field. I think most teams are going to be following them as well, as long as nothing goes bad over the summertime, which hopefully it doesn't. But they will play at Atlanta, home against San Francisco, so you'll get Trey Lance, at Dallas on Monday Night Football, so they only have 2 primetime games this year. Everything else is Sunday. They have a Monday night game against Dallas in Week 3. Andy Reid will be in Philadelphia Week 4 with the Chiefs. They're at Carolina in Week 5. They will host Tom Brady and the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football in Week 6. They will go to Vegas for the first time in Week 7. They will be at Detroit in Week 8. They will host the Chargers and Justin Herbert in Week 9. They will go to Denver in Week 10. They will host New Orleans in Week 11. They will be at MetLife Stadium for back-to-back weeks in Week 12 against the Giants and Week 13 against Zach Wilson and the Jets. Their bye week comes on Week 14. That is a long stretch of games without the bye week. They will play late in the year. And if you notice, I have not mentioned Washington yet. You will get a first look at the football team in Week 15 at home against the Giants, at Washington in Week 17, and in Week 18, you will have to wait all the way until the last week of the season to play the Dallas Cowboys. But if you listen to what I said there, those last 4 games are all in the division, and 4 of the last 5 games are against division foes. So this could get interesting because you're at the Giants, at the Jets, bye, home against Washington, home against the Giants, at Washington, home against Dallas. That is the last stretch of games from the last 6 weeks of the season. You get the late bye, and then you have 5 out of 6 NFC East games, if this schedule is in fact accurate. I don't have any reason to think it wouldn't be. I see a lot of people out there putting these out, including, people from the Inquirer and some of the national heads out there. So it looks like these games are going to be the games, but again, they are not confirmed. So your thoughts, 609-403-0973. Now, when I tell you, the Eagles have the easiest schedule in football, it is by percentage on the teams they played from their wins last season. All 17 games have been leaked. They will open the season against Atlanta, against the Falcons. In Atlanta, I should say, against the Falcons. Andy Reid back. A couple notes that just stick out. Andy Reid will be back. If you go through this thing, there's a couple of stories to be told in here. You see Kyle Pitts in Week 1. You'll see Trey Lance in Week 2. Of course, Dallas, always a story in Week 3, and that's your one Monday Night Football game of the season. Andy Reid returns in Week 4. Carolina, Sam Darnold, you'll get to see in Carolina. Tom Brady and the champs Thursday night. First time playing at Vegas. You'll get your first. Detroit took Penei Sewell, right? So you'll see Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, Justin Herbert. Denver took Patrick Surtain. That was a little bit of a surprise. Drew Lock. Who knows? Denver could have Aaron Rodgers on that team. There's a story. New Orleans, you don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback there. Remember, you beat New Orleans last year. Jalen Hurts is 1-0 against the Saints. Going to be a different-looking Saints team with no Drew Brees. So they come back to Philly this year. And then, of course, the Giants, renewing that rivalry. First time you play the Giants is in Week 12. The first 11 weeks of the year, there's only one NFC East game. That's it. The division will not be decided until you get into November, essentially. And it's not normally decided, but it's going to be wide open. Unless, of course, you're 0-, you're 1-8 or 2-7 or something like that. Atlanta did not make the playoffs last year. San Francisco did not make the playoffs last year. Dallas did not make the playoffs last year. Carolina did not make the playoffs last year. Vegas did not make the playoffs last year. Detroit did not make the playoffs last year. The Chargers did not make the playoffs last year. Denver did not make the playoffs last year. The Giants did not make the playoffs. The Jets did not make the playoffs. So that is your schedule right there. The only teams that actually had a winning record that the Eagles will face in this schedule the entire season is Kansas City in week 4, Tampa Bay in week 6, and the Saints had a winning record last year. You will face them in week 11. Now, they don't have Drew Brees. Other than that, not one team on this schedule has a winning record next season. That is it. There's the schedule as we have seen it. Now, again, this is not confirmed. This is various reports. The home games, by the way, for those of you who are thinking about going to a game, it's San Francisco, Kansas City, Tampa Bay on a Thursday night, Chargers, Saints, and then your NFC East teams. So your non-division games are San Fran, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Chargers, Saints. Those are the 5 games that are the non-division games at home. And if you want to take a road trip, you've got Atlanta, Dallas, Carolina, Vegas. How many Eagle fans are going to be in Vegas, by the way? My gosh. The whole place will be, that place is going to be half Eagle fans if you're letting people back in. Detroit, Denver, and then twice in a row, you get to go to MetLife. 2 straight weekends, you could drive up to MetLife, and then in week 17, they're down in Washington, which is a pretty easy drive. So it's a pretty friendly schedule in terms of travel. Some fun road trips in there. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. All right, so some text messages are coming in. If you're watching the show, you can comment on the schedule. Also, some news that has come in earlier before the show today. The Eagles are one of 14 teams, by the way. So that's kind of calm our jets a little bit here. But they're one of 14 teams that have interest in Steven Nelson, apparently. So we have been hearing Steven Nelson's name a lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks here, especially since the end of the draft, where the Eagles did not come away with a quote-unquote starting corner or a definitive starting corner. Steven Nelson is a definitive starting cornerback in the NFL. He would come in and start immediately opposite of Darius Slay. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN said they are one of 14 teams that has looked at Nelson, and obviously it makes a lot of sense. They need a corner. He doesn't have a job, but as we said, a lot of competition. 14 teams are looking at Nelson, so we'll believe it when we see it. It definitely is a name that would help this team out. He would start right away. Does Steven Nelson find the Eagles situation attractive? The other teams that have interest in Steven Nelson right now, but you also have to keep in mind, here's a guy who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was essentially a cap casualty. You have the Houston Texans, Chicago Bears, Cincinnati Bengals, the Buffalo Bills are among the teams. And it says in the tweet that he continues to be patient, waiting for the right fit and opportunity. I mean, Philadelphia is a perfect fit in terms of need, playing time. He doesn't have to worry about that. He wouldn't have to worry about, hey, do they like me? Do they have somebody who's going to take my spot? Do I have to compete with somebody? If Nelson's looking for the easiest path, Philadelphia would definitely be that. I mean, they have got to have the worst cornerback room in football. So, yeah, Jalen, the biggest no-brainer report of the day, the Eagles among 14 teams interested in Steven Nelson, which obviously makes a lot of sense. All right, let me see some of the text messages that I'm getting here. 609-403-0973. I apologize. My allergies are really bad today. I mean, it's as bad as I think I've ever had them. Awful. I know Navage and all the stuff. I need to do something. I haven't. I need to. Something's bad. I literally feel like I could. My nose just hasn't stopped running for about a week now. I'm doing the best I can today. All right. This is the best effort I can give you. All right. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Quiet on the Deshaun Watson front, Mike. If the Eagles can get him with that schedule, I think they could be a playoff team. Well, I don't really want to get too much into Deshaun Watson, but I will say this. There was a report today that the Eagles are still very interested in him. But here's the thing. I think the Eagles didn't draft a quarterback or had interest in a quarterback. This situation plays out for them. They get to evaluate Jalen Hurts. If Hurts doesn't play well, I don't think Watson's going to play in the league this year. If Watson doesn't play and Hurts doesn't play well, he then maybe I don't know what happens with Watson. I don't want to say it just goes away because I hate that thought that it just goes away. I want some sort of resolve with this situation, but they get a chance to evaluate Hurts, didn't have to draft a quarterback, and said, look, this Watson thing has now kind of been resolved. We can make a play for Deshaun Watson. So I don't think Watson's going to play in the league this year. That's just my gut feeling right now. Looking at what Carolina's done, they drafted a quarterback, I think, pretty high in the draft, if memory serves. I think they took one in the second or third round. They also signed. Who did Houston sign? They signed a veteran quarterback that was like, that's interesting. Like, it was kind of one of those signings that kind of said, hey, there's a good possibility that we might actually need you to play. So I don't think you'll see, me personally, I don't think you'll see Deshaun Watson play this season in the league. And Philadelphia would be at the top of the list of teams that I think would be lining up to get him if, in fact, they feel that Jalen Hurts can't play. Now, that being the case, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Hurts will be fine and that this would all kind of be water under the bridge in terms of the interest in Deshaun Watson. But I think Watson is not going to play this year. That would be my intuition. Who is the quarterback that they picked up out there? Let me see. I could have sworn Houston. Oh, Tyrod Taylor. That's right. They signed Tyrod Taylor. I mean, Tyrod Taylor is essentially them saying, hey, we don't think that Deshaun Watson's going to play. So we need a quarterback. Tom from the Villas, I'm just glad there are only 2 night games this season. Yeah, you're getting a Monday nighter and you're getting a Thursday nighter, and they're both within the first 6 weeks of the season. That's it. That's all you're getting. You got Dallas on Monday. You got Tampa Bay on Thursday. And that's it. By the way, speaking of which, the Dallas Cowboys will open up against Tampa Bay on the first Thursday night of the season. That will be your first game. Mike, Trey Lance, not Jimmy G. Probably Jimmy G. I would imagine Jimmy G will start. Yeah, that's probably accurate. What did I say? Lance? Jimmy G will probably start that game. It's week 2, so I would imagine Jimmy G would not have taken over earlier than that. Let's see. What else? Hey, Mike, the Jets trade a 4th for Ertz yet? Cole from LBI. No, but how about this possibility? This one's interesting. I got a trade possibility that's not me just playing armchair quarterback. It is an actual possibility that could happen, and I will tell you about that coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, because there is a possible trade partner for Zach Ertz. You know what I'm talking about? Do you know the trade partner for Zach Ertz? Okay, he's intrigued. You all should be intrigued because I have one that fits. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan. Now open on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot. Online, mattblattnissan.com. I have a trade that would fit for both teams. Makes sense. Both sides. Coming back. All right, right now at 97.3 ESPN.com, the Eagles' 17-game schedule is released. You can check it out. So Zach Ertz obviously doesn't want to be here. And last night it was revealed that Arizona linebacker Jordan Hicks is looking for a trade. So how about an Ertz to Arizona for Jordan Hicks to Philadelphia? They need a tight end. I don't want to say the Eagles need a linebacker, but they do. I mean, they have two linebackers that are starting level, I guess. Eric Wilson can start. Singleton can play, but Hicks is better than both of them. So it wouldn't be terrible to bring Jordan Hicks here. So anybody out there, the Arizona Cardinals are going to let Jordan Hicks go look for a trade. And all he's done his last two seasons with the Arizona Cardinals is play all 32 games, 171 tackles, 10 passes broken up, 4 interceptions. He has a $6 million salary cap hit in 2021. So you're basically swapping salary caps. Ertz for Hicks. They need a tight end out there pretty badly, actually. So it makes a lot of sense for them. And I think, because they drafted Zaven Collins, and essentially teams are only playing two linebackers now. So they have Simmons, who they took in the draft 2 years ago, and they've got the kid that they drafted this year. So it looks like Jordan Hicks just doesn't have any place to play in Arizona. So who says no to that? Jordan Hicks, Zach Ertz, 609-403-0973. Jeff Bone Pookie says, makes sense. Yep. Fingers crossed. It's Ertz for Jordan Hicks. Prediction, Noah. Yep. There you go. I saw so much pollen coming down at one point. It looked like snow. Yes. My car right now looks like it was out in green snow. It is so bad. It is terrible out there. So again, I'm doing the best I can today. And if my effort's poor, then I apologize. So that is one thing that I read today and said, the one issue is, I would guess, right? The one issue is that, and I don't even know that this is an issue, but I think, and I saw Ann Rappaport tweet this out, I think that on top of the salary, that Jordan Hicks has some incentives and some bonuses that make him a little bit tough. He has a $2 million playtime incentive, $2 million base, $1 million roster bonus, and $2 million available more in playtime incentives. So he's got a little bit to consider there, but I think Ertz makes more money than him. So I don't know that would be a big factor. But it's a good possibility. The question is, if the Eagles want to bring in a guy like Steven Nelson and then Jordan Hicks, what's the salary cap implications? They still have to sign their rookies. To my knowledge, they have not signed any of their rookies yet. So they still need to get that all done. Nelson would probably be a guy that wants a decent amount of money. I think Steven Nelson last year in Pittsburgh, he was a salary cap dump. And one of the reasons why he was available is because of the money that he made with Pittsburgh, which was $8.5 million. So if you want to bring Steve Nelson here, you're going to have to get creative with that contract. He's 28 years old. I'm imagining Jordan Hicks is somewhere in that range too. You remember he was drafted by Chip Kelly. So you're going back to 2013 or 14. He was in one of those two drafts. The funny part with Jordan Hicks, as I said, he's played all 32 games the last two seasons, was he couldn't stay on the field in college. And then he got to Philadelphia and ended up getting hurt. But Jordan Hicks right now, he stays in Arizona, would compete with Zaven Collins for the Mike linebacker spot. he has been a captain out there. I think if you put Jordan Hicks and Eric Wilson together, that would be a pretty good linebacking core. You would have two guys that are good in coverage. Hicks is a pretty solid tackler, better than Wilson is. He's a better player overall than Alex Singleton. You could have Singleton be the backup at the Mike spot. You would have TJ Edwards, I guess, is kind of that run-stuffing linebacker. All of a sudden, your linebacker room with Jordan Hicks, Eric Wilson, Alex Singleton is much better. If you could get Steve Nelson somehow. Now, I'm not getting too excited about Steve Nelson. There's 14 teams that are interested. Yeah, Alex Singleton is solid, but he's much better suited to team as a backup. I mean, remember, this guy was playing in the CFL. I thought he did an admirable job, stuck his nose in there. But I think Jordan Hicks, we can all agree, is a more talented player for your defense. And then look, if somebody got hurt, Alex Singleton's ready to go. The Eagles also, keep in mind, have some very young players at linebacker. They have Davion Taylor. They've got the kid that they drafted from Tulsa in the 7th round. I don't know what they're going to end up doing with Jacoby Stevens, but Jacoby Stevens is a guy that might come in and play linebacker as well. So you got all that in there. 609-403-0973. So there's a lot of Eagles stuff today. Jeff Mosher, football at 4. That's still to come here today. So Jordan Hicks, I think he's definitely a name that you could target in a trade if you want to try to upgrade this defense. Steve Nelson's available. I think that's something that if you get involved in, you absolutely have upgraded your team. And as I told you, this schedule is definitely manageable. This schedule is definitely the kind of schedule where you could say, hey, they went from worst to first. How did that happen? And you would say, well, they played the easiest schedule in the league. And the way that like last year, there was no navigation of that thing. It was brutal. I remember reading that thing off like, man, this is brutal. There is not really that brutal stretch here. They only have 3 games against teams with winning records from last year. Now, that's going to change this year. I would think San Francisco's better. I would anticipate Dallas is better. I would think that the Chargers are better. I think Denver has a chance to be better. Carolina should be interesting now with Sam Darnold. Is he that much better than Teddy Bridgewater? Atlanta's kind of intriguing with Kyle Pitts and that offense, but their defense still needs a lot of work. But remember, they changed coaches out there. But there's not this whole thing where you're like, man, they got this team. The only stretch that's a little wonky is you got Kansas City, and then in the middle you got Carolina and Tampa Bay. So you're playing the 2 teams that went to the Super Bowl in a 3-week span. And then you got Dallas on Monday night, Kansas City, Carolina, Tampa. That might be their most difficult stretch of the season. Other than that, I mean, think about this. From week 12 to 18, you play Washington twice. They have the most wins, 7, of any opponent that you will play in the final 6 weeks of the season from last year. They won the division last year. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is going to jump on board, as he will Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Our Sports Bash look. How about the Sixers loss last night? Was it concerning? Plus, can the Eagles go from worst to first? We'll ask Mike coming up here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Phil's with a nice win last night. Big old hit there by Andrew Knapp. Bust things open. Alec Boehm had a nice hit as well. Game-winning RBI. So we got a lot of positive Eagles schedule leaking out. For the full schedule, go to 97.3ESPN.com. right, 2:39. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City set to jump on board at AC Press McGarry. You can check him out there, and he writes his must-win column. And as we will do a couple times a week, spin things around the horn, have a little fun. I know there's a lot going on with the schedule coming out tonight, although apparently it's out today. By the way, I don't need an 8 o'clock special for a NFL schedule either, so I'm quite okay, Mike, with the schedule coming out right now. Like, this is fine for me. Are you going to sit tonight and be hunkered down for 3-hour NFL release?
Absolutely not. And I'm with you. I'm with everything. Everything can happen at 10 a.m. as far as I'm concerned. We can play the games at 10 a.m. We can release the schedules at 10 a.m. We can wrap it up by 1 p.m. We can be at early bird specials and in bed, by 10 p.m. So I'm with you. The earlier it happens, the better for me.
As I've gotten older,
exactly.
I've gotten older. I actually like that London game. Give me a 9:30 Sunday.
Exactly.
Now, right? I'm good with the 9:30 Sunday game on a weekly basis. I'll take that thing.
Right. You mentioned that a couple times. I have been in California, and it really is life-changing to have games. That Sunday night football game ends at 8:30 at night. You still got a little bit of the night left. So I'm with you. I don't need 3-hour primetime specials telling me who the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing in Week 15. I don't need that.
So where do you rank the Thursday night kickoff? It is Tampa Bay taking on Dallas.
That's always a great night. The season starts right there. And I think, Dallas for us, here in the NFC East, we'll be extra tuned into that game. We'll want to see what Dak Prescott looks like, right? We'll want to see, how that Cowboy offense is functioning. And Brady and the Buccaneers are always, a marquee matchup to watch. So I actually think that's a great game to start the season, and one with a lot of local interest also.
All right. So where do you stand on Philadelphia? Was 4-11-1. Were they 4-11-1 because they were bad and it's a bad roster, or were they 4-11-1 because of injury? Do you look at this team and say, hey, this could be, because everybody has a team that goes worst to first. That happens almost every single year. Are they a candidate, or is this just a bad roster?
In my mind, they're not a candidate to go worse for first. I think they're a bad roster. I think they're a team that is going to have to rebuild. I think a couple of reasons for that. I think you look at the division, right? I think the division's going to be better than it was last year. I mentioned that Prescott's coming back for Dallas. I also think that the Washington football team and the Giants have been bad for so long that they've been able to add some quality players, and eventually they're going to take a step forward. I think both teams won, 6 games last year. I think they're going to take a step forward into that 8 or 9 range. So I see the division winner having 9 wins, maybe 10, but mostly 9. And I still see the Eagles in that 4 or 5 range. Though, according to the league schedule, I think them having the last 4 games in the division gives, will keep you involved and give some hope, because they're going to arrive at that stretch and you're going to be able to say, well, if they beat the Giants here, they beat the Redskins here, so-and-so, they can still get in. So I think the schedule plays into their favor, but I kind of see them as the clear number 4 team in the division right now.
Yeah, Mike is alluding to the last 4 games are NFC East, and 5 of the last 6. So they play the Giants, then the Jets. They have a bye in Week 14, according to this release schedule. And then the last 4 games are Washington, New York, Washington, Dallas. So even if you're kind of out of it, you have a shot to make that all up. And that is a daunting task. To ask the team to play 4 straight division games is rough.
Right. But you're going to be, and we're going to be able to talk ourselves into when that stretch arrives. We're going to be right there because you're going to control your own fate. Unless you're 0-12, I guess at that point, you're going to be able to say to yourself, hey, if we run the table, if we get hot, we go 4-1, we're going to have a shot. So they're going to be in it, and it's going to be an interesting football season. But ranking the 4 teams, I put them clearly at number 4. And it's just a function. I mean, look, they've been good for 20 years, in and out.
Tell that to the listeners.
Yeah, well, tell that to the Washington fans and the Giant fans who have suffered through the last 4 or 5 years. So
Dallas has won. People act like Dallas has won 3 playoff games in 25 years. There's a whole generation of people in their 30s that never don't know the Cowboys of ever being good.
Right, exactly. So, the Eagles have been remarkably most years since Andy Reid got here, they've been good or in playoff contention. Rare has been the season where they've been bad. You can kind of count them on one hand, basically. Yeah. I just think they're kind of due to take a step back, and I think that's where the roster is right now.
Mike, they have had Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is with me. They have had back-to-back losing seasons in the last 20 years. One time.
Right.
One. They went 7-9 and 7-9 in back-to-back years. That's the only time they've ever had. So Eagle fans have been so spoiled. They've only suffered a losing season back-to-back years one time. It's unbelievable. So you might be right. It might be time that it might be back-to-back losing seasons. I'm not so sure about that, though.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel. And Eagles fans should ask your Giant friends, your Jet friends, fans of other teams. Like I said, it's really remarkable what the Eagles have done the past 20 years. And like I said before, I just think it's inevitable. And this is their time to not, spin their wheels a little bit and take a couple steps backwards, basically.
All right. So you write the column. It is entitled Must Win over at the Press of Atlantic City. I encourage everybody to read Mike's work. Follow him on Twitter at AC Press McGarry. Would you have considered last night's Sixers game a must win?
I a couple weeks ago on Twitter, I basically put out that I'm not making any judgments on the NBA regular season with regards to the Sixers and 90% of the teams in the NBA. So I would not have considered it a must win. They're going to get that number one seed. Now Thursday night against Miami, to me, it might be a must win to keep Miami on the other side of the bracket. However, from what I know about professional sports teams, they're not going to view it that way. But to me, you can make an argument that, keep Miami at the number 6 seed. Make sure you don't have to face them in the playoffs. If you can do that on Thursday night, I think that's if I was the Sixers, I would want to do that. Now, whether they do that, who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting because if you end up losing that game on Thursday night, now the pressure starts to get on. I know Brooklyn's going to get all 3 of their guys back, right? I think that Harden is going to try to play.
Right. Harden is supposed to come back before the regular season ends. Last night, I guess in the win over Chicago, Kyrie Irving took a shot to the head, but I expect him to be back put it to you this way. I suspect when Brooklyn is playing either the Milwaukee Bucks, and if they get past the Bucks and they do face the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Final, if the Sixers are there, those 3 guys are going to be on the floor for games 5, 6, and 7. So
now, no Embiid last night. Now, do you watch that game and think, man, how do you lose this game with everything? You could have clinched everything. Like, is it obviously they sat a couple guys. He didn't play. Thibault didn't play. They were playing on some wonky line. Mike Scott's on the floor. And the last
Isaiah Joe was on the floor.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that just goes to show you that NBA teams, and I really think teams in all sports, we as fans and reporters get so caught up in seeds and thinking, we want to finish here to avoid this team. We want to finish here to avoid that team. We want to get a favorable matchup here. The teams, in my experience, just do not think like that. They value health over everything. So I think in the Sixers' mind, they'll say, as long as Joel Embiid is healthy, we don't care if we're playing the 72-73 Lakers. We'll take them on, but we got to need Embiid healthy, basically. That's their priority, basically.
Well, the one thing is, I think the Sixers of the 3 teams, at least, Milwaukee really hasn't said much. They have been like, hey, keep us out of this. Brooklyn obviously doesn't care. Philadelphia has said, we want that number 1 seed. I think they understand the value of that number 1 seed in this particular season. Don't you?
Oh, I think they view it as a means to an end. I think Doc Rivers the other night before the game with the Pelicans said it was really not a great achievement. It was nothing to really celebrate, but it's a means to an end of getting to the NBA Finals, which it clearly is. Look, if they're the number 1 seed and you can keep Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and somehow keep Miami on the other side of the bracket, and you're looking at playing the Wizards, Celtics, Hawks, Knicks in that sort of combination to get to the Eastern Conference Final, it doesn't take a genius. You don't have to be, Jerry West to know you'd rather be the number 1 seed than on the other side of the bracket. And you have an opportunity to, impact your own fate on Thursday night against the Miami Heat.
All right, Mike. By the way, the Knicks, that loss last night, that was a tough one for them because now, as you mentioned, the Miami Heat become a real factor to jump into that 4-5 spot. Would you think that the Knicks are leaking oil, or are they good enough to hang in that 4-5 matchup?
Yeah, I don't know if they're leaking oil. I just think last night's game, and I watched the second half, is what the Knicks are. And if the Knicks were to play the Sixers, I think a lot of the games would unfold the way they unfolded last night. The Knicks play tough. They play tenacious defense. They play hard. They're right in the game. They'll have a lead with the final 2 minutes to go. But when push comes to shove, they just don't have the talent to put them over the top. That's what happened against the Lakers last night. And that's kind of a preview, I think, what will happen when the Knicks play any good team in the playoffs. They'll be right there, but it'll be like a 5-game series of closely fought, tough losses for the Knicks.
If the Sixers and the Knicks play in round 2, that would be like a Knicks Heat or a Knicks Pacers matchup from the 90s.
Right, and I think it would unfold a lot like last night's game. I think the Sixers would win that series in 5 games, maybe 6 if the Knicks shot extremely well for 1 game, but I just don't think the Knicks have enough talent to really get over the top. Now, having said that, from where the Knicks have been, most of the past 25 years, Knicks fans will take that, basically.
Well, right now, after last night, the Knicks fell from 4 to 6.
Right.
Atlanta is 4, Miami's 5. They all have identical 38 and 31 marks.
Right.
That's it. They're all there. They all have 3 games left. So it is going to be a big game Thursday for Philly against Miami. The Knicks, their last 3 games. And this means a lot because the 4-5 winner would play the 1 seed in round number 2. So these NBA playoffs are going to be highly intriguing. And by the way, the Hawks play the Wizards tonight. We have that game on 97.3. Let me ask you, Mike McGarry. We battled a couple of years ago about must-wins on the Phillies. Like you were saying in April, right? They had must-win game April. Are we buying into this year's edition of the Phillies?
Are we buying into it? Good question. Kind of, I think. I think they have the ability to stay in a race. I think with those 3 pitchers at the top of the rotation, I think with some of the lineup, the Bryce Harpers, the JT Realmutos, they can stay in the race for the NL East, probably stay in contention for a wild card. Now, do they have enough talent or enough depth of talent to get there? I don't know at this point. I mean, their bench is not very good. The back end of their rotation is not very good. And some of the holes in the lineup might be too much to overcome. So I think they'll keep it sort of intriguing or semi-interesting this summer. But are they going to get there? I'm not 100%.
All right, Mike, give us a quick little overview on some of the key high school stories that you've got covered. I see you tweeting away about the winter sports calendar for next year, which I'm sure has a lot of people saying, what the heck is this?
Right. Well, we'll have a story later on today online and in the paper tomorrow, the NJSAA sort of revising the winter sports calendar, shortening the basketball season by about 12 days, for the 2022-23 season. So we're following that. The other thing going on big right now is spring sports season starting to head up. Here we've got the Diamond Classic. We've got Diamond Classic games tomorrow in baseball, that great tournament. Ocean City at Williamstown tomorrow. That'll be interesting. Mainland hosting Cherry Hill West tomorrow, St. Augustine hosting Paulsboro. So we'll be watching that Diamond Classic play out over the next 7 to 10 days, one of the great events in South Jersey. And my good friend Atlantic City coach Gene Allen weighing in here with an opinion of the Knicks. Gene, keep your powder dry, buddy. There you go. So.
Yeah, Gene's watching. He says the Knicks stink, Mike and Mike. I saw Gene the other day, and he keeps telling me, the Sixers, no, they can't play. I said, of all coaches that is downplaying defense, the Knicks is a Gene Allen coach team.
Right, and the Knicks do rely on some defense right there. They will be pesky in the playoffs, I think, but not, again, I don't see them doing any more than I see them if they were to play the Sixers, that series unfolding similar to when the Brooklyn Nets were pesky with D'Angelo Russell a couple years ago, and the Sixers beat them in 5 games in the beginning of the series. So That's what I see for the Knicks coming forward. But it would be great fun for the area if the Knicks and Sixers could kind of hook up there in the playoffs. I think everybody would enjoy that.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun. Second round, that matchup could happen. We'll see. These last 3 games will dictate that. Mike McGarry at AC Press McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Make sure you check out all of his work, his must-win column, and more. All right, Mike, we'll see you on Friday, man.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. See you down the road. Thank you.
Yeah, man, that is fun. We will be spinning around, and Mike, of course, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He's fun always to talk to. We battle a lot, but we always respect each other's opinions. I will say this. I think that Knicks team is feisty. They're not great, but they are feisty. And they're the kind of team that if you play them in the playoffs, they could kind of beat you up a little bit. You might not lose the game, but they could kind of beat you up that you go into that Eastern Conference Finals, you got a couple bruises on your arms. Randall's a lot of fun, man. Randall has really developed his game into the next another level. I mean, he's not like in that number 1 or number 1A, but he has turned himself. He's not like the best player on a team that wins a championship. There's no question about that. He would be a great number 3 guy for somebody. He was bringing the ball up last night. Randall was. All right, coming back, I'll read off your comments, your tweets, your text, 609-403-0973. Inside the Sixers with Paul Hudrick today at 3:20. Don't go away. Hour 2 of the Sports Bash. Hopefully you enjoyed Mike McGarry. I always enjoy sparring with Mike. We will do that Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. So we got Eagles' schedule is out, most of it. For the most part, all 17 games have been released. I don't have all the times. They only have 2 primetime games. They play a Monday night game and they play a Thursday night game. We'll break it down more with Geoff Mosher, Jeff Kerr tonight. And one thought on every game. Week 1, Casey Joyner tonight at 5 o'clock. Somebody said, wait, last game at Dallas? That's what it looks like. It looks like the last game of the year is it at Dallas? I think it's at Philly. Yeah, it's home. Yeah, the game at Dallas is the Monday night game early in the year. All right, keep your messages coming in the chat if you're watching the show over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Also, if you're listening on the radio, send me a text, 609-403-0973. Maka's watching on YouTube. He says, Simmons played with playoff fire last night. He wanted that one, hit the mid-range jumpers. Simmons got off to a hot start. He definitely had that aggressive Simmons in him early in that game. I feel like, I was flipping back and forth a little bit with the Phillies and the Sixers. The Sixers had that lead, and, but I felt like every time I turned the game on, Maxey was in the game with Hill. I mean, I felt like those guys played. Now, they only ended up playing. Hill played 19 minutes. Maxey played 17 minutes. I must have caught all 17 Maxey minutes. I thought Mike Scott played way too many minutes last night. I saw people complaining, hey, there's what you get with Simmons. They basically sagged off Simmons on that late possession, and then he kicked it into the corner. Mike Scott shoots the 3. Mike Scott's wide open. He missed the 3. That's what Ben Simmons is supposed to do. The problem is, why is it Mike Scott in that spot right there? It's not Danny Green. It's not Tobias Harris. It's Mike Scott. That's the bigger problem I have. I don't have the problem with Ben Simmons. They sag off of him. He dribbles in. The defense comes towards him. He kicks it out. Scott gets a great look. That's who the Sixers are. But Mike Scott should not be in that spot with 2 minutes in the game taking the big 3 to try to, I don't know if they were going to tie it or cut it to 2. I don't remember. I thought Tobias had a great game last night, 27 points, but he said it. We kind of lost focus. That's a game that even without Joel Embiid, I feel like they have to get that game. So I will chalk that up to a disappointing loss. No question about it. It's a disappointing loss. Now, when you lose without Joel Embiid, it's hard for me to rip you. So I'm not going to rip them. But I was definitely disappointed that they lost that game last night. There's a difference between getting ripped and saying unacceptable. It wasn't an unacceptable loss. It was just a disappointing loss. Right? It was just a disappointing loss. And you're allowed to be disappointed. But I thought Ben Simmons played a pretty good game last night. Like, if you give me that Ben Simmons game in the playoffs, I feel like they're going to be a tough out. 9 of 16, you get aggressive Ben. Not aggressive enough at the free throw line. I think he can still get to the line more. 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. Turned the ball over a little too much last night, but he ends up with 20. Like, if Ben Simmons gives me 20 points and is aggressive Ben like you got last night, that is a team that is dangerous. The problem is you got no Joel Embiid, and that turns into a tough situation, as you saw. Like Ben Simmons last night, late in that game, I see people, complaining because they sagged off of him. Oh, this is what you're going to get. Yeah, that's what the Sixers, this is the problem. People haven't come to terms with, they still want Ben Simmons to be something he isn't. The Sixers have come to terms with that and created an offense based on what he is. We've talked so much about the coaching and how important that is. The coach has recognized what he has and has transformed his offense to fit that skill set. He wants Ben Simmons to find that guy in the corner to take that wide open three. He doesn't want Ben Simmons to shoot the three. He wants Ben Simmons to get it to his shooters for the three. And Mike Scott, with 1:20 left in the game, they're down 4. It was 96-92. And if he makes that three, it's a 1-point game. I would not mind Danny Green taking that three in the corner. Instead, Mike Scott, for some reasons, in the game. So I have no problem with Ben Simmons, what he did late in that game, dribble drive down the left-hand side, kick out for Mike Scott. I just don't know why Mike Scott's in the game. And I get it. They don't have Joel Embiid, so he's playing the center minutes. But why is he on that spot on the floor? Fine, he's the center. He's out on the floor. Why is he out in the corner? Can I get Danny Green out there? Can I get Tobias Harris out there? Heck, give me Isaiah Joe. I'll take Isaiah Joe in that corner. I mean, he's not on the court. How about Tolliver? But I thought it was a disappointing loss for the Sixers last night. Definitely. It's a game that they could have won. It's a game that they should have won, even without Joel Embiid. 609-403-0973. I agree with the Mike Scott three. Granted, the Pacers were clamping down on everyone. They almost had the starting lineup out minus Joel. Mike Scott was not the guy when everyone comes out. So I'm just confused. You like the Mike Scott three, or you agree with me about the Mike Scott three? Another text. Hey, Mike, how pissed were you last night when the Sixers just didn't put down the Pacers and get that first and chill to the playoffs? I wouldn't say I'm pissed. I mean, I actually kind of look, I'm one of those people that I want to see the players play all the way to the end. I don't care about getting the rest. They have a week off between the last game of the year on Sunday and their first playoff game, which might not be till Saturday or Sunday. So it's a long wait. So it's almost like a blessing in disguise that they have to continue to play some meaningful games. Because just think about it. You're going to play all these games. If you won last night, you'd be playing 3 games with nothing to play for. So I'm quite okay from that aspect. But I would have liked to seen them clinch it last night and just not keep the door open for anybody. That being said, I don't think the door is very open at all. I think it's a small little crack, if anything. They are 2 games up on Brooklyn with 3 to play. They are 3 games up on Milwaukee with 3 to play. They would have to lose all 3 games for Milwaukee to tie them, and Milwaukee has the tiebreaker. They would have to lose 2 out of 3, and Brooklyn has to win all 3, which is possible. I don't see Brooklyn, losing all 3 games, or I don't see why they couldn't win all 3 games. Philly plays the Heat Thursday and 2 against Orlando. Orlando's pretty bad. Orlando's a pretty bad team. In terms of what happened last night, you had New York lose. Miami won last night, right? They beat Boston. So now Miami is in the 5 spot. And Miami in the 5 spot means they would be the second-round opponent if they beat the Hawks in round number 1. If you're Philadelphia and you win round 1, you would play the winner of the Atlanta-Miami series. Milwaukee right now is set up to play the Knicks in round 1. The Knicks fell to the 6th spot last night with their loss against the Lakers. So there was some movement last night in the Eastern Conference. Miami went from 6 to 5. New York went from 4 to 6. Atlanta went from 5 to 4. Washington also moved. They were 9. They dropped back to 10. Indiana with the win last night put themselves in the play-in game. Charlotte also put themselves in that play-in game. And then Boston lost for the third straight time. They have a shot still to reach the Knicks. That's not happening. They're 3 back with 3 to play, so they're going to be Boston's going to be in the play-in game. Over in the West, the Lakers won. Dallas lost, so Dallas dropped to 6. Portland moved to 5. The Lakers are 1 back of the 6th seed, which would get them out of the play-in tournament. So there is 3 games left for most teams. The season ends on Sunday, and you still have a lot of questions that have gone unanswered here. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Ben Simmons could have the most average game ever, and you'll blame the 9th player in the rotation. I don't think so. I mean, Ben Simmons scored 20 points, had I wouldn't call that an average game. I don't think it was one of his best games. If you want Mike Scott taking that shot in that moment, I'm not blaming that's not why they lost the game last night. You obviously don't listen very clearly, and that's not a surprise. But star player misses a game and nothing clicks in him to be better. You on the Ben Simmons payroll. I feel like you might have some other issues there, Ryan Robinson, listening on Facebook. I thought that here's the problem. A guy like Ryan Robinson wants Ben Simmons to score 35 points. See, Ryan Robinson, that's the problem. You're not very intelligent. You want Ben Simmons to be something that he's not. I at least have come to terms with he's not a scorer. He's not a 35-point game scorer. So Joel Embiid is out. Ben Simmons shot 16 shots last night. He was about as aggressive as he's been all season long. You're obviously not smart enough to understand that, and for that, I'm sorry. But that's okay. If you can't figure out by now that Ben Simmons in that kind of situation, they don't want him to shoot that 3. If you want him to shoot that 3, it's because you've got a problem. His coach, Doc Rivers, doesn't want him to shoot that 3. By the way, check out the Sixers record when Ben Simmons doesn't play. Check out what happens when he doesn't play. So if you are okay with Ben Simmons not being here, check out the record when he's not here. You saw it a couple of games ago. They didn't win a game without Ben Simmons. And I didn't blame the 9th guy. All I said was, I don't have a problem with Ben Simmons passing it to Mike Scott. My point is, why is Mike Scott in that position? I didn't blame Mike Scott for them losing the game. I just said that's not the guy that I want in that spot in that moment in the game. I'm not blaming him for losing that game last night. What did Doc Rivers say after the game? And I agree with him. The offense was a problem last night. They had a great defensive effort, but their offense was a problem last night. Ben Simmons, 20 points, 9 of 16. I don't think he was so much of a problem. But when you lose a guy scoring 30 points a game, they were struggling to kind of figure out what to do, how to get that big bucket in that spot. The problem is a guy like Ryan Robinson wants Ben Simmons to be a top-level scorer. Newsflash, Ryan Robinson, he's not. Once you get that through your thick skull, you might understand that he's not a top-level scorer. If you want him to be one, you're going to continue to be disappointed. That's not putting anybody on the payroll. That's just understanding who the guy is. Try it sometime. It might help you out, dummy.
At the end of the day, the Sixers shot 8 for 26 from 3. That's not Ben Simmons' fault. It's not Ben Simmons' fault that guys just weren't doing their job around him half the game. By the way, the Sixers held Domantas Sabonis under 20 points. I was like, he's their best player. He was limited. Karis LeVert, if he doesn't hit that 3 late in the game, the Sixers probably have a better chance to win that game.
No, Doc said it afterward. Look, defensively, they played a good game. They played a fine game defensively. They had a couple of moments late in the game. They needed to get a couple stops that disappointingly The Levert 3 was the big one that they didn't end up
Right.
getting. But defensively was not the issue. You mentioned it. They did not shoot the 3 particularly well last night. They got some good look. The Mike Scott look, I don't have a problem with the look
Right.
Mike
The
Scott
look's not
got.
the problem.
Right. Simmons gets him a good look. That's Simmons' job. People like this guy want Simmons to do more. The Sixers are telling Ben Simmons, you don't need to do more. Be that guy. Concentrate on being that guy. He did his job. I'm not blaming Mike Scott for losing the game. It's just not the guy that I want to take that shot. It's the right look. That's the play they want.
Doc Rivers said after the game, he said, because they were asking about Ben maybe taking certain shots or situations, he said, look, Ben's job in the offense is to set up the offense and roll the basket. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. If he does something else outside the framework of the offense, Doc said that's a problem. So as far as the coaching staff is concerned, Ben Simmons is playing within the role given him in the offense. So realistically, if Ryan Robinson or anybody has a problem with it, blame Doc Rivers and the Sixers coaching staff. Don't blame Ben. He's doing the job that he's being told to do on a night in, night out basis.
All right, inside the Sixers on the way, we'll talk to Paul Hudrick. Does he have blame for Ben Simmons, or is he on Ben Simmons' payroll as well? We'll find out. No one's asking Ben to score 35 again. Everyone's asking Ben to make it so Joel doesn't have to score 35 every game to win. Guess what? Joel scores 35 points a game because Ben Simmons gives him the ball and sets him up into those spots. That's the Sixers offense. They played 70 games this year. Try watching one of them. Sports Bash Live. Actually, they've played 69 games this year. Go back and try watching them there, pal. And once you do, watch them again, because I'm sure, like every movie, you got to watch it twice to actually understand it, because obviously you're having a hard time with it. Now, coming up at 4:25 today, we'll do you Remember? Do you remember on this day? Is that Paul Hudrick without a beard? Wow. The fresh face Paul Hudrick is on your video screen. For those of you who see Paul on here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday, that is Paul. He just shaved his beard. I am surprised myself. What happened? What'd you do? Did you lose a bet?
Nah, just about that time, man. Every time, it's I'll tell you this, Mike. Every time it's the same pattern. It's grow the beard for a while, like the beard, then one day not like the beard, and then start shaving it and immediately regret it. So
how long does it take you?
No, well, this thing will be back.
No, how long does it take you to get all the hair off? You got a pretty sizable beard.
Nah, it didn't take long. I have a very quality trimmer.
Nice.
So it didn't take very long.
Look at that. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how disappointing is that loss last night?
I mean, I guess I'll say like a 2, because it's not disappointing. It's disappointing because they had a chance. It looked like they, especially earlier in the game, they really controlled it, especially in the first half. And in the second half, their offense just completely went silent. But you still have 3 chances to win one game to clinch the 1 seed. So disappointing, yes, but I'm not in like full meltdown mode about it. You win Thursday and it's over. And then you can coast the last 2 games in Orlando. But even if you lose Thursday, you take care of business on Friday against Orlando, and then the last game you get a rest. And they're going to get a rest too, Mike, during the play-in tournament. So it's not like there's not going to be opportunity to sit guys and let guys get a little healthy. So I would say a 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, it's anytime you don't have Joel, it's tough to kind of,
and that, of course, right.
That whole situation. I would have liked to seen them win the game last night and just kind of got it over with. But I'm kind of like torn on that because you just said it. You already have a week off. I'd hate to see them not playing guys these last 3 games because now you're going to have almost 2 weeks off. So you think those guys will play if they clinched last night? Do you think those guys would play at all in like a half? How do you see like him divvying up? If they clinched Thursday night, do they play in the last 2 games at all?
I think it's going to be player to player kind of contingent. Like I could see Ben Simmons wanting to play Ben Simmons in those games because you saw. There's like this weird litigation about him last night when I thought he was sensational. I thought
it wasn't just me who I just got accused of being on the Ben Simmons payroll.
No, he was great. For you to watch that game and think that Ben Simmons was the problem. Like I don't know what you watched.
I'll tell you what it comes down to, Paul. See, it's still these people who want Ben Simmons to be something different when the team has clearly told him, don't be what they want you to be what we want you to be. And we don't want you to be what they want you to be. We want you to be this guy.
And not only that, it's like, what do you want him to do? I mean, is it just, there's like that one play that someone let's start over, actually. Let's go. First half, he was dominant. He controlled the game in the first half.
Yeah.
They had a double-digit lead, and it was because of him, because of how dominant he was on both ends of the floor. The second half, the Pacers made a concerted effort to say, okay, Ben Simmons, you're not going to beat us. How is that not a good thing? That the other team said, okay, Ben Simmons, you're great. You killed us. We're going to do everything we can to stop you and let everyone else beat him. And guess what? They didn't. Seth Curry did not have a good second half. Danny Green was cold all game long. Tobias Harris had a good start, but even in the fourth quarter, I think he would tell you he missed a lot of shots that he normally makes, especially in that situation. And then Mike Scott. I mean, I don't even need to really elaborate on that because of the year he's having. But what Sixers fans should feel good about is that the Pacers' game plan in the second half was to stop Ben Simmons. I don't know what else. That's what they do to Joel Embiid. They do everything they can to stop Joel Embiid. The difference is Joel Embiid has gotten so good that he's found counters to that. Ben Simmons hasn't encountered that very much, or he's been the guy that other teams are looking to stop. So, I mean, I don't know what you want. There was the one play where people converged on him. He had Mike Scott open in the corner for 3, and he drove instead. Do you want Ben Simmons to launch the 3? Do you want him to pass it to Mike?
That's what they want. They want Ben Simmons to launch that 3.
I mean, okay, sure. And he probably, let's be real, there's like a 70% chance he probably misses it, right? I mean, just the reality of it. So, yeah, maybe he could have taken that shot, but
No,
I don't know.
The one area, like it's that one with 1:20 left, and they're down 96-92, and the defense sags. Ben goes with them, and then he goes to – my problem isn't with Ben there. It's why is Mike Scott the guy that is nestled in the corner wide open? I'd rather – and look, Mike Scott's only out there because Joel's not there. So that whole play is so different in a situation if they're at full strength. But, Danny Green, 2 for 8 last night, not shooting the ball well. If he's shooting the ball a little better, then probably not in that situation. Seth Curry did not shoot the ball. But people have to come to terms with they want Ben Simmons to score 35 points because Joel's not there. So because Joel's not there, he has to score more. No, the team is, if you don't like the team, that's on you. The team is Ben setting these guys up for the highest percentage of looks of any other player in the league.
100%. And that was, to me, what kind of I don't want to take too much from that game, because to me it's not Joel Embiid didn't play. It's really not that meaningful of a game. Sure, they could have clinched the 1 seed, but it's just really there's not, you know what I mean? It just doesn't have what the other games had. Plus you're missing Thibault, plus you're missing Korkmaz, plus you're missing Shake Milton. So that's three arguably 3 of your best bench players all out of the lineup, plus the arguable MVP of the league out of the lineup. So let's start there. But yeah, I'm worried when I see Seth Curry in the third quarter. I don't know how I would like to. I almost am tempted to go back and watch the game and count it. How many open threes did Seth Curry pass up last night? It had to be at least 5. And that's the stuff he can't do when the playoffs start. And it's because what Indiana does well, they are led by TJ McConnell. They pressure the basketball. They have guards who are not afraid to get beat off the dribble. They will pressure you. And it bothered Seth Curry last night, and he couldn't get by it, and he wasn't taking the shots that were there. So that's a big part of what happened in the second half. Like I said, they said, we're going to stop Ben Simmons. Okay, Seth Curry. Okay, Danny Green, start hitting shots. And they didn't. And that's, and it kind of snowballed from there. And you talk about, Mike Scott. Mike Scott's probably not, let's be realistic. Mike Scott's probably not going to play a minute in the playoffs. As of right now, with the way their rotation is, with the way it shakes out, when they are at full strength, he will not play a minute. If you're going to look at one thing that I think maybe Doc Rivers could have done differently, I didn't love closing with Seth and Danny Green, because I don't think it was very clear that they didn't have it last night. You could have gone to George Hill down the stretch. You could have maybe rode Tyrese Maxey a little longer. So those are the few things that I think really stand out. But I think if your focus is on Ben Simmons and you think that Ben Simmons is the reason they lost that basketball game last night, you need to watch more basketball.
Amen to that. I mean, and 68 games, 69 games this season, and haven't figured out what the Sixers are asking of him, then you need to rewatch, like a movie. You need to rewatch again, because you've missed a lot of parts of this movie. They do not want Ben Simmons to be the player that the fans want him to be. And I'm okay with that, because Ben is very good at setting up the other guys. And guess what? There's a reason why Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate, and one of those reasons is number 25.
You just look, you nailed it, Mike, when you're talking about just like him setting everything up. And Joel Embiid has even said this. He said, when Ben Simmons is out, his defense is not actually what they miss the most. What they miss the most is tempo. And I think, too, sometimes when people hear tempo, they think, oh, fast break. It's not just about the fast break. It's about getting the ball at the floor quickly. It's about getting into the offense quickly and getting things moving. And sometimes you see that when Joel Embiid is kind of doing his thing, it's kind of Joel Embiid and then 4 guys standing around.
What was it that Danny Green, I think he just had Doc Rivers on his Green Room podcast, saying about how the one area that people don't give Ben enough credit for, and I can't remember, I think it was about the way that he gets people the ball and gets them like the most open of open looks, that he knows exactly when to facilitate the other. Like, he doesn't give it to you too early. He doesn't get it to you too late. He gets it to you at the exact right moment. And he said, like, that is an underrated thing, that he's never played with a guy who has that ability.
And there's probably not that many guys in the league that have that ability, right? I mean, it's a pretty underrated trait to have. And it goes back to me too, Mike. Like, and like we talk about Philadelphia athletes, what do the Philadelphia fans love? Oh, they love guys who play hard. They love guys who are selfless and want to do everything to help the team win. Ben Simmons might be the defensive player of the year. He plays hard on that end every single night, and he's selfless. He always wants to make the best play for his team. He's always trying to set his teammates up. So again, it goes back to what you kind of brought up, where they want him to be LeBron James. They want him to be the number 1 overall pick guy. And that's just it's not who he is. And that doesn't mean he's not a great basketball player, that he can't be a better basketball player. Like, just because he's not LeBron James, who is arguably the greatest player to ever play basketball, that doesn't mean that Ben Simmons still can't be a really good player and help this team win a championship, because I absolutely think he can.
Yeah, it was the last Inside the Green Room, by the way. They talked about Simmons leading the NBA in 3-point assists. And they kind of went into that. We'll get that audio up that you can hear the full quote. But I think it really kind of quantifies what his teammates think of him. Forget what the fans think of him, how the team enjoys having him because of what he does for them. And I say all the time, you might want Ben to score more points. And if that's you're going to be disappointed. But he makes a average player good and a good player great. And that's what you got. You have a couple of players like Danny Green and Seth Curry who are probably average players. He's making them good players. He's got a guy in Tobias Harris who is a good player. He's making him a great player. So keep that in mind, is these other guys are all better because of what he's doing for them. And he's got a great player in Joel Embiid, and he's making him an elite player.
To your point, everybody in the starting 5 is pretty much having a career year. Whether it's Seth Curry, whether it's Danny Green, whether it's Tobias Harris, or of course Joel Embiid, all 4 of those guys are having arguably the best year of their career. And I think it would just be silly to not give Ben Simmons any credit for that. I mean, sure, Joel Embiid deserves a great amount of credit for that because of the gravitas he brings, and how great of a year he's having, and how much attention he gets, and how that creates opportunities for others. But you can't understate that Ben Simmons is elevating his teammates. And that's what really great players do. That's what point guards do. They make the players around them better. Now, is Ben Simmons perfect? No, he is absolutely not perfect. Are there times where maybe even I think like, maybe he should have shot the ball here, or maybe he could have looked to score there? Absolutely. There are times. He's not a perfect player, and he's not a finished product, Mike. He's 24 years old. He's still got a ways to go to be a finished product. So I think, again, I came away from that Indiana game more encouraged than anything else, because I thought he was aggressive when he needed to be. He picked his spots well, and he was just everywhere on the floor. He attacked. He hit 2 fadeaway jumpers that both looked really pretty. They both swished. One was in the 4th quarter in a big spot. So I think the growth is it's maybe not coming as fast as some people would like, but I think he is growing. He is getting better. And I just, if you have to, I kind of think you're nailing it when you say you have to separate what you want him to be to what he is, and accept him for what he is. And that what he is pretty darn good.
Yeah. And I go back to this. Paul Hudrick's with us. That I've said this in the past, which I'll bring back, is think about how good Joel was at 24 and think about how much better he is now at 27. He was really good at 24. He's that much better at 27. So think about where Ben is at 24, and then picture him 3 years down the road. He's got a lot more to grow and learn. And I know people are like, well, if he's not going to shoot, what's the difference? Look, give him 3 years and see if his game's evolved and changed, like Joel's did. Because you might say, what more can Joel do? He was great at 20. He's so much better at 27 than he was at 24. All right, Sixers tomorrow night. They take on the Heat. Friday against the Magic. Sunday against the Magic. And that's it. We will figure it all out after Sunday. So when Paul's back on Monday's edition of Inside the Sixers, we will have at least some semblance of the seedings. Then the play-in games will be on Tuesday the 18th and Friday the 21st. And then the playoffs will begin on the 22nd and 23rd for the Philadelphia 76ers. 3 to go with a 2-game lead for the number 1 seed. Brooklyn has 3 games left. Looks like they're going to get James Harden back tonight. They should have all 3 guys for at least 2 of these games, I guess. I mean, we'll see if Kyrie ends up playing, because he got hit in the head last night. And Paul Hudrick is on Twitter at Paul Hudrick for all the Sixers news. All right, man. Good conversation.
All right, Mike.
Look at it. Fresh-faced Paul Hudrick here on the Sports Bash. All right, he's back on Friday. We're here with you all the way till 6. We hope you hang out. Always love the conversation, even if you are in another galaxy far, far away. As you said, Mike, over the years, this is on the text board, by the way, 609-403-0973. As you said over the years, Mike, NBA fans just aren't that bright. I agree. Over on the text board, Danny Green missed a couple wide open threes, got one blocked. He was a disappointment last night. Yeah, he didn't play great. 2 for 8, got that one blocked. I thought the rest got that wrong. Open shooters not making shots. Hey, Sixers aren't going to win games if their shooters aren't making shots. This isn't, hey, Ben Simmons didn't make shots. Their team is predicated on, they have 2 guys that shoot 40% from 3. 3 guys, I'm sorry, Tobias Harris too. Curry, Green, and Harris all shoot over 40% from 3. They're predicated on those guys hitting threes, Joel Embiid dominating, getting to the line, dominating the paint, and Ben Simmons in transition. They can score 3 different ways. Ben Simmons on the break in transition, Ben Simmons setting guys up that are shooting 40% to hit threes, and Joel Embiid dominating in the paint. That's how this team is, a 3-prong approach. It's not Ben Simmons score 25 points. That's not how they're built. Maybe you've noticed through the 68 games this year. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill with you on a Wednesday, 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, download the free mobile app. It's powered by First Bank of Sea Island. It's free, and you can get alerts set up by team. Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, Sixers, high school sports. You can get them all. You can just get one team. You pick what you want. Download the app, 973ESPN.com/app. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. If you missed my conversation with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, check that out on our YouTube channel where you can watch the show live, as many of you have elected to do. We appreciate everybody who's been watching the show. There's a lot of ways you can watch the show. You have a Facebook account. You can go to our Facebook page. If you have a Twitter account, you can go to our Twitter page. If you know how to get to youtube.com, you can search 973 ESPN and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you will get an alert when we go live each day. You can go to 973ESPN.com, and you will see the link to watch the show live, and the YouTube player will be there. You can stream the show from your phone, laptop. If you have a smart TV, you can go to your YouTube app and search 973 ESPN and watch the show on your television in your living room or television in your bedroom or your kitchen or wherever you have a TV. How many TVs do people have in their houses these days? We have 1, 2, 3, and then I have one outside. So we have 4 TVs in all. But that's it. I think like we have one in the bedroom, one in the living room, and then one upstairs that has like the video games on it. And then there's one outside on the porch. I feel like people nowadays can get TVs at such a cheap price. My buddy had like an 80-inch television. I was at his house Saturday night. We were watching the Phillies game. He has an 80-inch television. I'm like, what'd that run you, man? He's like $550. I'm like, that television was $550. I mean, it's like Oprah Winfrey handing out TVs now. Everybody gets a television. You get one, and you get one. And it's funny because TVs are getting cheaper and cheaper, but it is getting harder and harder to figure out where to find games, for God's sakes. Speaking of the NFL with their schedule and where you can find games, the Thursday night football game this year between the Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that game's going to be in week 6. You know where that game's going to be on? Huh? Amazon Prime. That game is not on television. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Joshua. If the Thursday night game is on Amazon Prime, but it is in the home market, that game will be on regular over-the-air television, correct? Do you know who has the rights to carry that game on over-the-air television? Because quite frankly, if that's not the case, you got to get Amazon Prime to watch that game. How many people out there have Amazon Prime? I don't know if I do or not, to be honest with you. All these damn streaming services, I'm confused. But I was just looking at the Eagles' schedule, and for those of you who are just tuning in, the Eagles' schedule has been released. All 17 games are posted over at 973ESPN.com. Now, it is an unconfirmed schedule, but, I mean, for the most part, this is the schedule. And that schedule is as follows. Atlanta on the road to start things off. That has been confirmed. The team has tweeted that out. San Francisco at home, at Dallas on Monday Night Football. Home against Kansas City. So they start the season going road, home, road, home, road, home, road. They have a 2-game road trip in week 7 and week 8. Then they have a home game and a road game and a home game. See, they don't have they don't play back-to-back. Think about this. They do not play back-to-back home games until week 15 and 16 of the season. And then they play 3 out of 4 home games at the end of the year. See, look, when you go through these schedules, everybody does, win, loss, this team, they're going to beat that team. It's all predicated on how the health of that team is when you play that team. They could play like last year when they played New Orleans. Well, when the schedule came out, New Orleans looks like a game you're not going to win. Well, obviously, they lose Drew Brees. That changes things. And what it comes down to, and Mike Tannenbaum was talking about this. It's funny because people make fun of, the win-loss game, blah, 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 blah. First off, it's for fun, all right? You're having fun. You're trying to predict what you think the season may look like. You're allowed to have fun. It's okay. It's not against the rules, especially when you're doing this job, right? But what I will say is this. Mike Tannenbaum was talking about the other day about how the teams look at these schedules because they want any little bit of advantage that they can get against their division rivals. They want to be able to have any little bit of advantage that they can have against their division rivals in terms of how many times do they have to play 3 games on the road straight? How many games in the division in a row did they have as opposed to us? And I think in terms of that, the Eagles' schedule is set up pretty nicely for them. Do you agree?
I think the Eagles' schedule is looking more and more like a schedule for a team that goes from last to first place.
Right? I thought the same exact thing.
By the way, you asked the question about the Thursday footballs. Here's the interesting thing. There's not a specific network.
Now, this guy, by the way, real quick, somebody's watching the show on Facebook. Javier says, Amazon Prime is affiliated with Fox Sports.
Well, I don't see that anywhere. I can't confirm that. But what I can confirm is, according to everything I've just read, it will be a market-by-market decision initially. And then the NFL will later announce, ahead of time what network it will be on. So, for example...
Well, let me just say this. I'm giving you a heads up in May that if you want to watch the Eagles-Buccaneers game in Week 6...
Of 2022.
No, in 2021.
No, it starts 2022.
No, it's there's. I thought they were.
This is the last year for the Fox deal.
I thought they were. Was it supposed to start in 2023 and they moved it up a year? Okay. I thought they moved it up a year to this year.
This is the final year for the Fox deal for Thursday Night Football. Then next year it's Amazon Prime exclusive, except for regional.
Are the games on Amazon Prime this year as well?
They have a simulcast on Amazon Prime this year. Yeah, they've been doing that where it's a different broadcast team.
That one was Andrea Kramer and...
Yeah, I forget the other. Was it Hannah Storm?
I think so.
I think that was the team. But...
Are you sure about that? I could have sworn that the schedule, the Prime schedule was supposed to start and they decided to move it up. But maybe it was from 23 to 22.
Yeah, it's 23 to 22.
Gotcha. Okay.
But still, you need to be prepared anyway, because the problem is that if you're someone who's a football junkie and you want to watch these games.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't read, there's one side out on this. I don't know if, and I'm just saying if, this precludes any side streaming. So, for example, in the past, if you didn't have NFL Network or Fox, for example, you could still watch the game.
I don't have NFL Network.
You could still watch the game on certain apps on your phone as long as you were only going on your mobile device, not your Wi-Fi. Had to be your mobile data plan.
So is this akin? The other night, the Phillies game was on Cozy TV.
Mm-hmm.
On Comcast Cable, it was on Cozy TV in standard definition, by the way. But on YouTube TV, the Munsters was on Cozy TV.
Right, it's a streaming issue, correct.
So,
but you probably would have been able to watch on the My Teams app.
On the My Teams app.
Correct.
Yeah, you can always watch on the My Teams
so that's
app.
why I'm using the analogy. So, for example, there were many times that if I wasn't around the TV, I knew I could still watch Thursday Football because I had it on my phone, either through the NFL app or Yahoo Sports app.
Right.
You can watch, but they have to be on a mobile. You can't be on Wi-Fi.
Well, like Thursday Night Football, the last couple of years, I have YouTube TV. YouTube TV in my living room. YouTube TV does not have the NFL Network. It's the only sports channel they do not have. I mean, they have everything. The Big Ten Network, the SEC Network. I mean, for God's sake, so they got ACC Network on there.
Yeah, Comcast doesn't even have ACC Network.
YouTube TV has every sports network there is, the tennis channel, the hockey network. They don't have the NFL Network. So
Bizarre.
I've had to watch Thursday Night Football, like the first 4 games, I think it is, because of the fall television schedule. I've had to watch that on my phone.
That's correct.
And stream it through the Verizon app.
That's what I'm saying. Now, moving forward, you might still be able to do that with even if there's Amazon Prime, because the NFL's agreement with the phone carriers for mobile data exclusive streaming, which is separate from the Amazon deal. So that might be your back door.
Okay. Well, I do think I have Amazon Prime. But now you're telling me that this year the games aren't on Amazon Prime.
That's correct.
Yeah, Jeffrey Johansson agrees. I heard 2022, Mike. Yeah, I guess I thought that I heard that they moved it up a year, but I guess it was from 23 to 24. Mosher's on the other side, football at 4. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which drops tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And, of course, it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. You can get odds on the Eagles' opening week game against the Atlanta Falcons. They are favored. They are a 3.5-point underdog, I should say, in that game against the Falcons on the road, as it looks like, Geoff Mosher, that we don't need to wait for the primetime special. We apparently have the entire Eagles schedule out and ready to dissect. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. You must have seen more than me. I've been in and out of a little bit lately. So I've only seen I know they're playing Vegas. I know that obviously they're playing Atlanta in the opener. I know they're not playing on Thanksgiving, which fans probably like Thanksgiving games. Media and reporters, not so much. We like to be home with our families. So I'm not upset about that. But I have not seen the whole wind down yet. So you can tell it to me.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, I will tell it to you. This is good. Since you haven't seen it, I will kind of give it to you in its form here. Let me see if I can bring it up on the
Wait,
schedule.
you know what? I do know that they also play 49ers week 2 at home and then Chiefs week 3 at home.
They play the 49ers week 2 at home.
Mm-hmm.
They play I don't think it's the Chiefs in week 3. I think they play the Chiefs in week number 4. I will bring it up on the schedule here for you so that you can see it as well. And I think that should bring it up on the schedule. There you go. All right. Now, this is not confirmed. All right. This is not confirmed, but I think most tweets that I've seen, I've cross-referenced, and it shows that these are pretty much accurate. Okay. So you got Atlanta in week 1, San Francisco in week 2, at Dallas on Monday night. There's only 2 primetime games. Even with the Eagles being as bad as they were, Geoff, they usually put Dallas and Philly and New York and Philly typically get a primetime game in there. I was a little surprised that they only have 2 primetime games. One of them is against Dallas. The other one is against Tampa on a Thursday night.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. I heard this might be the case. Now I see it's the reality. Just 2 preseason games, 2 primetime games is staggeringly low. Even for an Eagles team coming off a losing year, Mike, they usually, just based on market size alone and the fact that their games against the Giants, the Cowboys, and Washington always tend to be, because of the market sizes of all the teams involved, tend to be really big draws on primetime, whether the team is good or not. That really is surprising to me that there is only 2. If this is accurate,
yeah.
So this is a @leaks NFL, so that's a new site for me, or Twitter account for me. So we'll see if that's true.
Well, I've seen some of guys, Zach Berman has been confirming a lot of these. I've seen a lot of the games have been confirmed by a lot of people so far. So, yes, I'm saying this is not 100% accurate, but there's a lot of people confirming these dates. Now, I don't have the times and all that stuff, but I look at, okay, so Kansas City at Carolina, the game on Thursday night, Tampa Bay, at Vegas, at Detroit. They play back-to-back road games in weeks 7 and 8. Everything else is back and forth for the first 7 weeks of the season. Home away, home away, home away. They like last year, they had that daunting part where they played New Orleans, Seattle, Green Bay. There is not one part of this schedule that is like, woof, there's a rough patch in there. The only thing is, and I don't know if you could see it, the last 6 weeks of the year, they have 2 straight games at MetLife. They play the Giants and the Jets on the road in 13 and 14. Their bye week isn't until week 14, but in the end, at the end of the year, they play
got to be a division game, right?
4 straight division games to close out the year. 4 straight division games, but 3 of the 4 are at home. They play Washington, New York, Washington, and they close the year up against Dallas.
Ooh, that's tough that they get Washington 2 times out of the last 4 years. That's only tough depending on how you view Washington. I think with that defense that they're going to be a very difficult team throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't fear, well, maybe as an Eagles fan, you do fear Ryan Fitzpatrick because he seems to light up the scoreboard every time they play him. And now he's surrounded by a team that's got some pretty good offensive weapons and a really good defense. This is probably the best overall team. Hard to believe because he's been in the league for so long, but that he has been the starting quarterback for. So if he can just kind of be managed, this is like, you remember the Broncos? It's not a great apples to apples. Remember when the Broncos won the Super Bowl, but Peyton Manning clearly wasn't who he was supposed to be, for most of his career, but they managed him. They had such a great defense and a pretty good running game that they managed him there at the end. So that's the type of team that I expect Washington to be. Yeah, I know. That's unbelievable that he's never been in the playoffs.
I agree with you. Their defense is very, very going to be very, very challenging and very, very difficult. And I think Washington, now the difference is if you look at, there's another, the Eagles have the easiest schedule in the league this year, and it's not close. Their winning percentage of teams from last year is only .430, Geoff. And if you look at that schedule, only 3 of those opponents had a winning record last year.
Well, hard to believe. I don't put much stock into it. I mean, if Dallas stays healthy, they're going to be pretty good with Dak Prescott, and that at least they're going to score points. I look at the first pocket of the schedule. You go down to Atlanta, then you got San Francisco, then you got Dallas, then you have Kansas City. And you think about the Eagles defense going through a major transition right now. And I don't know that I'm not saying I think the Eagles defense is going to be bad, but I think it's going to be a difficult first month as they transition to an entirely new scheme. You see that pretty frequently. You're facing at least 3 quarterbacks out of the 4 teams. I don't know what San Francisco is going to be doing. If Garoppolo is there, then you can say 4 pretty experienced quarterbacks and 4 pretty good offenses there. I have 2 very good ones with Atlanta and Kansas City. Atlanta has been bad the last few years, but they've been able to score points. They just gave up they've hemorrhaged points on the other side.
Yeah.
So, and obviously Dallas with Dak last year was on a record-setting scoring pace until he got hurt. So it's not easy goings for the Eagles defense in the first month of the season.
No, and we'll break it down through pockets. I like that, Geoff. 4-4-4. That first game of the year. Hey, Kyle Pitts, welcome to the NFL. You get to face the worst secondary anyone's ever possibly seen.
Yeah.
More news on that in just a minute, though, by the way. But, you got Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan, Kyle Pitts. So the Eagles are going to have to match up with that kind of offense. And you mentioned San Francisco. The one thing, when they played the 49ers, they beat the 49ers. It was one of the few wins they had. Now, both teams were decimated by injuries, but the 49ers have a ton of speed, offensively, very creative. And then, of course, Dallas with Dak back, and that's a Monday night game. And then, of course, you got Patrick Mahomes in that team. So those first 4 games, all intriguing. But, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Vegas, and Detroit, you got 3 out of 4 on the road in that little pocket right there, but only Tampa Bay of that group had a winning record last year. And, those seem like some winnable games.
Yeah. Carolina, it's almost like the Spider-Man meme, like everybody they needed a cornerback, they needed a wide receiver, and they needed some offensive line help. So they're similar teams. They'll probably, they'll be on Sam Darnold. So they're going to be going through an adjustment also with a new quarterback as well. So that should be an interesting game where you see 2 evenly matched type teams. And this is how I like to go through the schedule. I don't do the win-loss thing. I get it. It's fun. I have nothing against people who do, but I don't. Tampa Bay, obviously that's going to be a difficult one. Defending Super Bowl champs, short rest. At least you get them at home. But then you kind of look at it in the bigger picture now. It's like 4 of your first 6 games are against some pretty good quarterbacks there. So that's pretty rough as well. Then you go out to Vegas. It's a team that, I can see that being like one of those like 38-33 type games because neither of them scare you defensively, but they both have some decent offenses. Obviously, it'll be the first time for the Eagles out in a new stadium there. That's going to be a big Eagles fan trip, I imagine.
I already had somebody text in. It was like, I'm already booking my flight. I said, you tell Philadelphia fans you get to hang out in Vegas and go to a football game. I mean, that place. And it's like, of all the road games this year, that's like if you're like, hey, I want to pick one road game, it's Vegas or what, Atlanta?
Atlanta's always a good road trip. Absolutely. Denver in, let's see, what month let's see, because we don't have weeks here. So that's October. Early November. Not the best, but it is a nice city if you catch it on a nice weather day. But yeah, this doesn't have the road
Vegas.
Trips here. Vegas, there's Vegas, and then there's every other trip.
Well, and the fact that 2 of your road games are at MetLife Stadium because you're playing the Giants and the Jets. But that's interesting, too. You could drive up there 2 straight weeks and go see them play on the road. So that next pocket of the game, you get Justin Herbert in there.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, so real quick, you in that second pocket, you're going to get Sam Darnold, Tom Brady. You could get Derek Carr. You could get Aaron Rodgers in that game.
Yeah, we'll see.
And not Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff. So you'll get Jared Goff.
Yeah.
The next pocket, you'll get Herbert. You could get Aaron Rodgers in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who's going to be the quarterback in New Orleans, and then you're going to get Daniel Jones there.
Yeah. And, to go back to that second stretch, 5 through 8 there are beatable teams in the Panthers, the Lions, and the Raiders, but unfortunately 3 of those 4 games are on the road. So where you're just not expecting the team to be as good because that historically you're not. So that's the difficult part of that. But then, so the Chargers are going to be an interesting team. You're right. A lot of teams with either new quarterbacks or new coaching staffs. That'll be really interesting. Chargers, Denver, Saints are, the new era without Drew Brees. I mean, you look at that 4 right there, and this is when you're in November. So as a team, you're trying to get your identity. You remember the Chip Kelly's first year?
Yep.
Everybody got excited about the first win over Washington, and oh my God, his offense is amazing. And then they went and got their asses kicked by Kansas City and Denver, right, to come careening right back to earth. And you realize, you know what, this thing's going to be a little bit of a transition, which it was. It was kind of a roller coaster year, and then they finished, I believe, with 9 wins or 10 wins and made the playoffs.
They were 10-6 that first year.
Yeah. So this is similar. I mean,
but that was very similar to what I've been saying. The year before, they were 4-12, and they had all the injuries on the offensive line. They were a mess. That was the year that guys were hurt left and right. And then remember, late in that year, in Andy's last year, LaShawn McCoy got hurt. Deshaun Jackson got hurt. I mean, guys were getting hurt left. Now, it was very reminiscent of what happened last year. And then Chip comes in. You get the new coach, and the offensive line is back and healthy. They drafted Lane Johnson, and they had Michael Vick came in, and boom, that team kind of just took off. So I feel like this year and that year are the 2 years together are very comparable of how these things could go. And this schedule, it doesn't have that pocket where you're like, oh man, that's a brutal stretch here. The only thing is you got that last stretch of games where you got the Giants and the Jets on the road, then the 14th week bye, and then you got 5 out of 6 NFC East games. I've never even seen that before. I've been doing this for my whole life, it feels like. I've never seen 5 out of 6 games in the division.
Well, the last few years, they've ended with 3 straight division games. Or 4, no, did they end up with 4 last year? I forget, but it's been something similar to that. I'd have to go back and look.
I've seen them play 3 straight NFC East games. I don't know that I've ever seen them play 4, and never 5 out of 6. I mean, that is unheard of to me.
It does seem that way, and it seems obviously the NFL has been doing that intentionally over the last few years, loading.
The last couple of years, they've been trying to play division games the last 2 weeks of the year. And for whatever reason, they got 3, I think, last year. I think you're right. I think they played Washington.
No, it wasn't last year, but it was 2 years ago where they ended on it was 4. It was Giants, Washington, Dallas, New York. All right, that was right after the Miami loss. Remember when everybody, was like, oh, this team stinks, and then they went and won those 4 straight division games.
I remember somebody arguing with you about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was probably some low-rate sports talk guy. I have no idea. But he happened to be right.
That losing to the Dolphins that year really didn't matter all that much.
That's right.
Right.
But now I'm starting to, I got in front of me. I'm looking at some past years where you just don't see 4 straight games and 5 out of 6. So that is an interesting. It's hard to say if that's a brutal pocket or just an interesting one because the division is so haywire every year. It's hard to know if it's going to be good or not.
I'll tell you what it should do, though, Geoff. It will keep you saying, well, if they could just win these 5, it's going to keep them in the division race, you would think, right?
Yeah, but only if you're only saying that if, you're going into the December and Washington and New York or Dallas, one of those teams is kind of like what we've seen the last year. If one of those teams is, 8-4, then you're going to be like, man, that's not as, it's a tough game, especially if the Eagles aren't that good. So I kind of think this might be a bold statement. I kind of think this coming year is going to be one of those rare years where there's going to be a pretty good NFC East team. I don't know who it's going to be. It's probably either going to be Dallas or Washington. New York could definitely be. I mean, they've made a lot of improvements, but I do feel like there'll be a team that's going to actually maybe win 11 games in
Wow.
this division.
Well,
I feel like they've been building up. Somebody's got to at this point.
Philadelphia plays the easiest schedule in terms of opponents' winning percentage, 430. Dallas is the second worst at 452. New York is 474, and Washington plays the most difficult one in the division. Their opponents' combined winning percentage is 504, so just about 500. So the Eagles and Dallas have the two easiest schedules in the entire NFL based on last year's records.
Which means nothing, as we know, because I'm sure everybody who saw the Eagles on their schedule last year was not thinking, that's a 4-11 team right there. It's an easy W. So
if you remember, Geoff, Vegas last year, the over-under for wins for Philadelphia was 10.
Yeah, I remember. That was pretty high. That was interesting.
Yeah, so
I do think the first 4 games, though, is a fairly brutal stretch for a team that has a new coach, new scheme. The fact that there probably won't be OTAs again the way we know it, and the fact that you've got some good quarterbacks there with Mahomes, Prescott, Matt Ryan, and I have no idea what San Francisco is going to do, but it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, they always seem to be able to produce a pretty decent offense, even with their backup. So I feel like that's probably the toughest part of their schedule, given the external circumstances around them as well.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, of those 4, only one of them made the playoffs last year. And as we said, only 4 teams in total on this schedule made the playoffs last year. 2 of them went to the Super Bowl, Kansas City and Tampa Bay. Right. New Orleans, who will have a new quarterback, and then Washington, who you play twice. So you have 5 games in total against a playoff team from last year. Every other game on your schedule is against a non-playoff team. Now, some of them had injury issues.
Sure.
They've made changes, yada, yada. But that being said, that's why the people are saying, how do they have the easiest schedule? That's why only 4 of these teams actually made the playoffs. And only 3 of them, if you remember, Washington was sub 500. Only 3 of them actually made the playoffs. All right, Geoff Mosher, football at 4. Quickie couple things. Jeremy Fowler reporting today the Eagles are one of 14 teams interested in Steve Nelson. Is that just due diligence or legitimate, hey, we need a corner and this guy makes us better?
Of course they'd be interested. Adam Kaplan had them being interested in TJ Carey a couple of weeks ago. They were. He signed elsewhere. Steven Nelson, obviously, if that's true, and when you start to hear 14, you wonder if that's agent driven or if Jeremy has gone and called all 14 teams to try to sniff around. He's a good reporter. So look, I'm not going to doubt that Steven Nelson has a market. I'm sure he does. But as I always say, when you have a market, that usually means a bidding war ensues and money is better than you would think. Now, if that were the case, I would wonder why he's still unsigned right now. Maybe he's looking for weighing money versus opportunity. If you're looking for opportunity, you sign with the Eagles tomorrow because you're a starter as soon as you sign that paper. If you're looking for money or championship playoff potential, you're looking at other teams.
Well, as the tweet said, he continues to be patient, waiting for right fit and opportunity.
Yeah. In other words, he doesn't want to go to OTAs. He may not want to go to training camp.
Says Steven Nelson's market has been strong since becoming a free agent.
Yeah, I can believe that only because he's a starting cornerback in a league where everybody, including the Eagles, are looking for better starting cornerbacks. Now, my intel from the NFL personnel people I've spoke to is that Steven Nelson's a good corner, but not a great corner, and tends to view himself as better than he actually is. But when you're comparing him to, I guess, Kevon Seymour and Graylin Arnold and Craig James, of course, you're like, oh, I'll take him, right?
He's an all-pro next to this group of guys.
Exactly.
All right, so there's the leaked schedule. Now, who knows? Tonight at 8 o'clock, they could release this whole thing, and we could have a whole new schedule tomorrow. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, I think a good homework assignment would be to find out the last time the Eagles played 2, I would say even 3 or fewer primetime games. I would have to think it's been a while. I could be wrong.
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember the last time. Number one, they haven't had a Sunday night game. There's not even a Sunday. They got one Monday and a Thursday. That's it. They have, to my knowledge, they are not playing on any of the holidays. There's 2 Christmas games this year. They did not get one of those. They're not playing in London. They're not playing in Mexico City. They're not playing anywhere but home at 1 or 4 o'clock in every game except for 2. Now, If they have a good season for whatever reason, those games can get flexed in the back end of the season, and you can get flexed with. Can you get flexed into a Monday night game now? Is that part of the new?
I think you can now. I think, which is crazy, but apparently you can.
Does that start this year or next year?
I'd have to go back and look. I thought it did start this year, but it might be next. And just for perspective, I don't think the Eagles ever had as little buzz as they had in maybe 2016. Now, I know they had Carson Wentz, but remember, he wasn't even supposed to start at the time they're making the schedule in April, right? He's behind Sam Bradford. And Doug Peterson had to have the least amount of buzz for any head coach that year and in a while in Eagles history. And yet they still played 4 primetime games. They've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that I'm looking. So that's double the amount that they got this year. So, I mean, that's kind of crazy to me that they even had a Monday night game against the Bears. Remember, that's Carson Wentz's week 2, his first Monday night game. They won. They start 3-0 that year. Yep. And then they played their typical Thursday night game against the Giants, and then they played a Monday night game against the Packers. So, I mean, it's shocking to me that if this is true, I have to couch that they would only have 2 primetime games. That's crazy.
I saw that, and the fact that New York and Philly play Sunday night football, it seems like every single year,
and Dallas, definitely,
and Dallas too, and there's nothing there. And if you remember, Philly and Washington played that last Sunday night game. Now that was flexed into that spot last year, so you could see some flexes. Josh is telling me after week 12 they can flex the Monday night football games. So
okay, that makes more sense. All right, down the stretch, gotcha.
Also, it looks like there's going to be fans back at the link this year. Full house.
Wow, that's great. I did see that. Obviously everything right now is kind of a we expect, we anticipate based on the health and guidance of the officials that their advice that they're getting. So I hope that that's the case, man. That would be a great thing for us as a country, and hopefully media can get back in there too. More media.
I'm hoping that everything is back to normal in terms of these Zoom calls are over. I know it's probably convenient when they send you. I got the text today, hey, all the rookies, and you don't have to go over there, and you can just pop on Zoom. But it's not the same, right?
Yeah. No, journalism is not supposed to be convenient, right? It's reporting is not supposed to be convenient. You're supposed to work for your angles and information.
That's well put, Geoff Mosher at Inside Birds. Follow that account on Twitter for all of their platforms, content, and of course, the new Inside the Birds podcast will drop tomorrow morning at 6. And tomorrow, right here, we will officially have the schedule. We'll get Adam Kaplan's breakdown of that and so much more. He's Geoff Mosher. This is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Thank you, Geoff.
You got it, brother. Take care.
All right, there you go. He, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And we think that's the schedule. As we said, not confirmed. Just kind of breaking it down from what we saw there. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, do you remember is filled with stuff today, including do you remember this very infamous Game 7? Yeah, it happened on this day. Coming up next. 4:30 on the nose here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Let's check out what happened on this day. Do you remember? All right, you ready for some of these, Josh? We'll have fun with this. Do you remember these events on this day? May the 12th is today's date. It includes a pretty famous Game 7. Get to that. Say again?
You got my interest. I'm intrigued.
Okay. You ready for these?
CC.
All right. Do you remember? I don't, because I wasn't born. Neither were you. 1970, Ernie Banks hit his 500th homer off Atlanta Braves pitcher Pat Jarvis in a 4-3 win at Wrigley Field. Mr. Cub.
I saw this in ESPN Classic when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't remember, but what I brought this up. First off, it's Ernie Banks hitting his 500th homer, but I'm trying to think, who's the next guy that will hit 500 bombs?
I double check, but I think Miggy Cabrera's already passed that number.
I'm asking for the next guy to hit 500, not the guy who's already passed.
I'm trying to figure out who
Josh.
would be next on the list without having to look it up. I'm trying to do this off my head here. I mean, Mike Trout's got to be at least 150 away right now.
Jeez. Let's see who the active home run leaders are.
The active is Pujols.
Well, Pujols
Cabrera.
is not currently active, but yes.
He's technically active.
Miguel Cabrera is at 489.
Okay, so he hasn't hit 500 yet.
Yeah. So he would be next. Then Nelson Cruz at 425. Robinson Cano at 334. So the guy who has the best shot would be Giancarlo Stanton at 321. How about Justin Upton has 314? Mike Trout has 310. He is 29 years old.
I was close.
Yeah, so Mike Trout is 29 years old.
I don't think Upton gets there.
No. You don't think Upton gets there?
I don't think so.
You're being serious. Of course Justin Upton is not getting there.
Well,
is Justin Upton even getting regular at bats?
Oh, yeah.
What team is he even on?
The Angels.
Oh, my God. They have Upton, too?
Yeah. They've had Upton for a few years.
He's 33 years old. I didn't realize he was still playing, to be honest with you. That's what happens when you go to Anaheim.
Poor Mike Trout.
The only other guy, Joey Votto, has 300 homers. He is 37 years old, though, so he's not getting there.
Yeah,
Freddie Freeman has 249, so he's halfway there.
Freeman's 33?
He's 31.
Okay, he's looking than I thought.
Yeah. Paul Goldschmidt has 255. You know who's got an outside shot? Bryce Harper. He's 28. He has 239 homers, so he's not quite halfway there yet. But he's still got 10 years left on his deal.
He's still got 10 years left on his deal, and he would have to average about 35 homers a year for the next 10 years.
All right. Do you remember 1985? The Knicks win the first ever NBA draft lottery. They picked
Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, people think
it was rigged.
Yeah, they think it was a icy cold envelope.
I read a little bit about that, some of those theories in. Ever read the Dream Team book by Jack McCallum?
No.
It's a really great book if you love the history of basketball. And it gets into how that was all like controversial and how people weren't sure, how Patrick felt about being drafted by the Knicks. He would be willing to play for other teams. Because remember, around that time is when the whole John Elway fiasco went down. People were wondering, did the NBA not just fix it because it's the Knicks, because they were wondering, would Patrick want to play for another team?
Right. Well, that's the first ever draft lottery. The Knicks win the draft lottery, and they draft Patrick Ewing, which is one of the most famous draft classes, that whole situation. All right, 1987, A.C. Green, James Worthy, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Byron Scott, and Michael Cooper. They all scored double digits in a 118-106 win over the Golden State Warriors. That clinches the Western Conference semifinals for the Lakers. They go to the NBA Finals in 1987. I believe they played the Boston Celtics.
Yes, they did.
So the question is, the reason I bring this up is that Lakers team beats Golden State in a 7-game series. But right now, they are scheduled to play in a 1-game play-in game.
Right.
If everything ended. How about that?
And I believe that would be against Golden State right now.
I just said. Is anybody listening to me out there today? Those two teams played in that Game 7, and right now, they are set to meet in a play-in game. That's why I brought it up. I set that whole. You're like one of these listeners right now, not paying attention, saying random stuff. All right. 2010.
I have to fill my Pete Thompson obligation.
2010 hockey. The Montreal Canadiens followed up a monumental upset on this day by pulling off another. They beat the Capitals in round 1, if you remember that. They beat the Penguins in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. They accomplished what no team had done in the current playoff format, which was adopted in 94. That's beat President's Cup trophy winner and the defending Stanley Cup champion in successive rounds as the 8th-seeded team. But do you remember who they faced in the Eastern Conference finals?
And what year is this again?
2010.
Oh, Flyers.
Played the Flyers, who were the 7th seed, and got in on the final day of the year. They beat the Rangers in a shootout. They went to Game 7 against the Boston Bruins. They were down 3-0 in the series.
Right.
They were down 3-0 in Game 7 and came back and won, and then beat Montreal and lost to Chicago. But do you remember on this day, Montreal beating the Pittsburgh Penguins in Game 7? Certainly do.
I mean, that was wild because, like you mentioned, all those teams they've beaten that run did Montreal, and it was the most unlikely matchup of any matchup in the Eastern
7
Conference
versus
Finals.
8.
I mean, I remember sitting around thinking, I couldn't have predicted this if I wanted to. Like, this is so unexpected, ridiculous.
Nobody could. All right, next up. Do you remember 2014, LeBron James ties his playoff career high with 49 points. Chris Bosh hits a tie-breaking three-pointer with 57 seconds left, and the Heat beat the Nets 102-96 as they take a 3-1 lead in the Eastern Conference semifinals.
That Chris Bosh was really good. Doesn't get a lot of credit for those Heat teams.
He was, but here's my question. Okay, everybody knows who was on the Heat team. Who was on Brooklyn?
What year was this again?
2014.
2014.
The 2014 playoffs.
So was this the Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Joe Johnson, Brooke Lopez, Darren Williams team?
Joe Johnson, Paul Pierce, Sean Livingston, Darren Williams. After that, I mean, Kevin Garnett, yes, he started on that team. He was not very good.
Brooke Lopez?
Brooke Lopez was not on that team.
Okay, so he was gone by then.
Yeah. Kirilenko was on that team.
Oh, my goodness. That was when, they brought back Kirill. They brought Kirilenko in because the Russian owner owned the team. What was his name again? The crazy Russian guy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember his name, though.
Yeah, he was apparently like...
Doesn't he still own? Oh, Jay-Z owns the team now, right?
Well, it's Jay-Z and a couple other people. It's a weird situation.
Yeah, that Brooklyn team. See, that's the whole thing. Like that Miami Heat team, they played that Brooklyn team, which was not very good. All right. Do you remember, sadly, 2019? I think we all remember. Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Sixers, Raptors. Kawhi Leonard hits a fadeaway jumper at the buzzer to win it for Toronto. It's just one of 2 series clinching buzzer beaters in a winner-take-all game in NBA postseason history. And it happened on this day in 2019.
That was the moment that you realized it was not going to happen.
Where were you?
I was watching at home.
I was sitting on my back porch. I watched it out on the porch. Couldn't believe it. You know who hit the other series clinching buzzer beater? It's very famous. It's cover of Sports Illustrated.
Cover of Sports Illustrated?
Yeah.
Would this be
1989 first round game? Game 5 knocks them out.
Oh, Jordan, Cavs.
Jordan, the shot over Craig Elo.
The Bulls win.
Yeah. Think about that, though. The NBA playoffs haven't even begun yet. And on this day in 2019 is when Kawhi Leonard hit that shot in the NBA playoffs to knock the Sixers out.
I'm just glad we're talking about the NBA playoffs right now because last May we were wondering if there was going to be an NBA season resuming.
All right, a couple quick happy birthdays. 1925, Yogi Berra, Baseball Hall of Famer, 18-time All-Star, 13-time World Series champion, was the MVP in 51, 54, and 55. More World Series wins than any player in World Series Major League Baseball history.
Is Yogi Berra a Hall of Famer? He played for any organization not near the Yankees.
Yeah, he was the MVP 3 times. The best player in his league 3 times.
Just wondering.
He went to the World Series 14 times.
Well, maybe with the Yankees doesn't go 14 times.
All right. I don't know all his stats off the top of my head, but if you're the MVP of the league 3 times, I think they're pretty good.
I'd have to go back and look at some of those MVP votes.
Stuff in the ballot. Happy birthday, Lou Whitaker. Sweet Lou. I bring him up because when I was growing up, it was Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell. They were the second base shortstop of the Detroit Tigers for like my whole life. Lance Parrish, Cecil Fielder.
Jack Morris was the starter in that ace of that team, right?
He was the rookie of the year in 1978. Yeah. Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell. What a double play combination those two guys were. 1968, happy birthday, Tony Hawk, skateboarder. Do any of the kids even know who Tony Hawk is?
It's a very good question. I feel like Tony Hawk was a very generation-specific superstar.
He's the only skateboarder anybody in our generation could ever name.
But he's also the only skateboarder that we cared about because it was the only reason why we actually watched skateboarding.
Right, but he's the only one anybody knew.
You only tuned on the X Games at the very beginning because you knew that Tony Hawk was going to be there. And all the people who watch X Games today are only watching the X Games.
Well, right, he's the pioneer, but I'm saying, do those people even know who Tony Hawk is? And do the younger people have a bunch of Tony Hawks? Because I can't name another skateboarder, only Tony Hawk.
I think
he had his own video game.
I was going to say, the only reason why the kids might know him is because of the video game right now.
Right, he had his own video game.
He still has his own video game. Still comes out, apparently.
He's like John Madden football. Nobody knows who John Madden is. It's just John Madden football.
Nobody knows about John Madden, the coach. They just know about John Madden, the video game.
I got one more. Happy birthday, wide receiver Steve Smith Sr. Caught 1,031 passes, 731 yards in 16 years with the Carolina Panthers and the Baltimore Ravens. Happy birthday, Steve Smith Sr.
I love his story. I love the player. The football life of him is incredible, by the way, from NFL Network. And I love the way he played. He was feisty. He was aggressive. You know, he was a guy that if Billy Schwein would have told him, big guys beat up on little guys, Steve Smith would have threatened to fight Billy Schwein in the street.
Yeah, Steve Smith is a little guy with big everything else. I mean, he could make big plays, big catches, could run, could catch, had great catch radius, short in stature, very big guy, though. There you go. Do you remember May the 12th? Sixers lose in Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors. 3 Sixers land on this list. I got it. Coming up next. Three Sixers landed on this list. I will give you the details in just a second. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I've got plenty of opening week lines for you. I like them. I like to play the game. And we're going to do it at 5 o'clock tonight. One thought every game with Casey Joyner. Yep. The first week's schedule has been released. So one thought on every game with Casey Joyner is back today on the Sports Bash. Hey, guys, Mike Gill, and I've been telling you about my guys at Trifecta Therapeutics, the premier sports rehab performance center located centrally for anyone in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. If you're tired of being in pain, the team has the highest trained and skilled docs in the market. Trifecta Therapeutics. They can help you get pain-free. For more, get with the best. Schedule your free discovery session today. Use code word ESPN Radio at trifectatherapeutics.com or call them today. Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro. Don't let that pain linger. We're all getting older every day. I hate to say it. We're succumbing to injury. Trifecta Therapeutics can help. All right. Three Sixers appeared on this list. Do you know what I'm talking about? Probably not, because it's nothing official yet. But my guy Kevin O'Connor over at The Ringer put out his ballot for the NBA awards this season. He said it was one of the more difficult things he had to do. So I played along. He has his NBA awards ballot and this year's toughest calls. He says this year's jumbled MVP race may finally be settled, but there are still plenty of awards without a clear winner. So, MVP. He's got number 5, Luka Doncic. Number 4, Steph Curry. Number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Number 2, Joel Embiid. And number 1, Nikola Jokic. You know what everybody has in common on that list other than Steph Curry? None of them are from the United States of America. How about that? Think about how far this game has come, where you've got 4 guys up for the most valuable player award, and none of them are from the States. Think about USA basketball and Olympic basketball and how dominant we've been in basketball in our lifetime. And you have 4 players in the top 5 of the MVP balloting. Jokic, Embiid, Antetokounmpo, and Luka Doncic, all in the top 5 right now. Pretty cool when you think about it. And I don't think that Nikola Jokic is not deserving. I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about how Joel Embiid should win the award. And what I said was, I don't think Nikola Jokic doesn't deserve to win the award. What I said was he's averaging 29 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. He's had a tremendous year. But my point was I want to see what happens when they play without Jamal Murray. That was my point, is let me see what happens when they play without Jamal Murray. And if that team falters without Jamal Murray, what does that mean for Nikola Jokic's candidacy? And he has kept that team in the race. They have not fallen out. So I got to give him credit. I got to give him a handshake. And I got to say, Nikola Jokic, you have earned the MVP award. They have won 7 out of 10. They have not moved out of the 4 spot. They're not going to fall to 5. Now, you can make the argument that Joel Embiid's team is in 1st place and Nikola Jokic's team is in 4th place. If I'm voting, I'm still voting for Embiid. But I no longer think that Jokic doesn't deserve it. I wanted to see what happens when he had to play by himself. How important was he to that team? Well, obviously pretty important. Jamal Murray went out, and he kept winning. The Sixers, on the other hand, they lost Joel Embiid last night, and they lost to a pretty bad Pacers team. So I think Joel Embiid still would get my vote. His numbers are comparable, if not better, in some areas than Jokic is. The other guy, Steph Curry, I mean, what he's done has been tremendous, but they're the 8th seed right now. Luka Doncic, 6th seed. Come on, I can't do that. I mean, look, a couple of years ago, they gave it to Russell Westbrook. Why not just give it to him again? He has another triple-double average. He's got more triple-doubles than anyone in the history of the game the other night. So why don't we just give it to him again? That's how ridiculous it was just giving it to him because he averaged a triple-double. If that's the case, give it to him again. He's got another triple-double. That's why I think Joel Embiid deserves the award, is because the Sixers team is simply not the same without him. And they were able to be the first seed in the East based on how dominant he has been. The Nuggets, even with a dominant Jokic, they're still the fourth seed. But I have backed off a little bit that I think that because they have stayed in the fourth spot without Murray, that he is more deserving than he was 3 weeks ago when I had this conversation. The other spots, Defensive Player of the Year, number 3, Bam Adebayo. Number 2, Ben Simmons. And number 1, Rudy Gobert. I know a lot of people are going to be torn and split on this one. I don't like what he says in the piece, though. This is where I have a problem. He says the difference between Gobert and Simmons is that Gobert defines how the West leading Jazz operate, which is accurate. But he says while Simmons is one of several major parts that power the East leading Sixers, defensively, when Ben Simmons isn't out there, they're a mess. We saw that when Ben Simmons doesn't play. Check the Sixers record. Not good. So I get it. Gobert is their whole defensive game plan. Ben Simmons makes the Sixers go on defense. He is the complete difference maker for that Sixers defense. His most improved player, Jeremy Grant, Christian Wood, you know what they have in common? Both played for the process Sixers. How about that? Jeremy Grant and Christian Wood were both members of the process Sixers, but the clear winner, Julius Randle. Sixth Man of the Year, Jalen Brunson, Jordan Clark, Joe Ingles. Sixers don't really have a candidate there. I guess Shake Milton would be theirs. Coach of the Year, Michael Malone, Tom Thibodeau, former Sixer assistant Monty Williams on the list. All-NBA first team, Jokic, Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic. Second team, Joel Embiid, Julius Randle, LeBron James, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul. Over on the all-defensive first team, Rudy Gobert, Bam Adebayo, Draymond Green, Ben Simmons, Drew Holiday. And on the second team, 2 Sixers, Clint Capella, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Mikal Bridges, and Matisse Thybulle. How about that? Matisse makes the list. And what he says about Matisse is pretty interesting. No defender has blocked more jump shots than him. More on that coming up. But on the other side, one thought every game, Casey Joyner joins me. All right, final hour of the show. The NFL schedule gets released tonight. The full schedule gets released tonight at 8 o'clock. But we have the entire Eagles schedule right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. We also have the entire Week 1 schedule. The NFL has officially released Week 1. This courtesy of @NFL on Twitter. And it is time to take a look at it. One thought on every game. That's right. One thought every game. Week 1 with Casey Joyner, NFL insider. He does it all season long with us. Every Friday, we do our one thought on every game. Well, now that the schedule's out, we know Week 1, we have to do one thought on every NFL Week 1 game. As the people asked, where's Casey Joyner for this? I said, you know what? I'll reach out to him and see if he is ready to do one thought on every Week 1 game. Casey, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Oh, man, all is well. And, well, the schedule comes out tonight, but they were gracious enough to give us the first week of the schedule early this morning.
Yeah.
So it feels like a relative tradition now that we got to do one thought on every game, right?
It's more feedback from that than I do anything else to do. So I love doing it.
All right. Well, let's get into it. One thought every game, as we now know. The NFL kickoff on Thursday night. The defending Super Bowl champions are always in that spot, and they will take on the Dallas Cowboys. So it's going to be a much different Cowboys team than the one that struggled along last year.
I think it will. I mean, Dallas, I keep wanting them to return to, or expecting them to return to that 2016 team where they had the dominant offensive line. They keep trying to be like, oh, we'll just score teams. We'll just score teams. But going a different route to try to down the number of points allowed again. They added four safeties, 3 defensive line free agency, and the first 6 players they drafted in the draft on the defensive side of the ball. They had 473 last year, and they're going all out. Say, hey, if we're going to get into shootout games, at least drop that from 470 down to 420. I still think they need to go in that direction, but that seems where they go. We're going to try and stop them defense versus try and control them on offense.
When you look at Dallas and the offensive line, you talked about it a couple of years ago. They had one of the best offensive line in the league, just like Philadelphia did. Are they a top-level offensive line still? Are they an aging one? I mean, when you look at that offensive line, what kind of questions do you ask?
They used to be able to just Dan Reed years ago. Dan Reed, near Hall of Fame coach for the Falcons and such. He said, you've got a dominant offensive line. You can just do whatever you want offense. You don't have to choose if you want to do. You want to run the ball, you can run. You want to pass. You want to be, you can be bouncing. That's what Dallas was before. But you have to have a consistent offensive line. And when I'm grading out this offensive line, I see a line that sometimes is dominant, but very inconsistent. And if you're not consistent, then you can't be considered a dominant offensive line. I think that, and they keep trying it again with our skill position player. We'll do different things with play call things. We'll try and be more aggressive. Just keep thinking, get better play. You can, and also you can coach the offensive line. When they're inconsistent, it also says that maybe they're not getting the coaching they need there.
All right, so there you go. There is your Week 1 Thursday night kickoff game. It is the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, so let's go right into the Fox game there. Philadelphia and Atlanta. You've got, obviously, Jalen Hurts. You're going to see Kyle Pitts for the first time. What do we think about this Atlanta team? They were a 4th pick in the draft for a reason last year. This is a team, though, that has so many big names on offense.
They do, and I think as though they've not made the play 3 years. They keep trying to avoid doing that. We're going to turn the roster over. I still think that it's something like we're not that far. We were in the Super Bowl, made the playoffs, and then we're not that far. It's like, no, you guys are really that far away. You don't have talent on your roster. And as great as Pitts it is, if you look at he didn't do anything really in his freshman year.
Let me let's try to reset with Casey here. He's got a little bit of a bad connection, and see if we can pull him out and then bring him back in. We kind of have a little bit of a reverb situation there, but it's funny because he's right. You take a look at this Atlanta team, all the toys that they have on the offensive side of the ball. They've got Kyle Pitts, as we mentioned. They also got Julio Jones, 1st-round pick. Calvin Ridley, 1st-round pick. Matt Ryan, 1st-round pick. So why is it, Casey, that this team struggles so much?
Well, I mean, you've got all this offense, and I say that if you get into shootout games, they're 50 positions, even for the offenses of all time, and they've got Vikings, who could be a great offense, depending if they keep Julio, and then they've got Pitt, and they've got Ryan, and they got a good offensive line. They've got a lot of things in place, but I don't. You can take the approach. Let's just talk about the Cowboys, but you can't approach it. We're just going to go out. Outscore teams. I think it's a bad idea. I think you have to control the game on the ground, and you still play good defense. And I think Falcons are just trying to solve the problems in the wrong way in general.
Yeah, and then for Philadelphia, of course, it's going to be a whole new look. We don't know what to think. Nick Sirianni, the new head coach there. They got a new quarterback, Devonta Smith. They got a new toy there. But much like Dallas, their offensive line should be back. And I know you're a big offensive line metric guy. And over the years, with Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo, and whoever plays left tackle, whether it be Jordan Mailata or Andre Dillard, this line should be significantly better.
If it stays healthy. I mean, last year the problem was just health. It was you're changing the starting five every week, and it's not as the players are playing. You're having to shift players to do a bunch of different things. They've got the makings of a down offensive line. I think they're going to be a. They're not going to go Baltimore and just run the ball 550 times, but I have a feeling they're going to run a power offense. We look at what Colts did last year, and who knows what Sirianni wants to do comparative to what last year. But if that's a reflection of who he is, I think they're going to want to establish our ground game. Would not be surprised to see Eagles lean heavily on that. We've about them needing to do that for a long time to lean more on that part of the game.
Right? Yeah. I mean, Miles Sanders, they brought in Kerryon Johnson, and they also brought back Jordan Howard. So the message there is we have some backs now. We want guys who can run the ball.
Yeah, we've got three people. And look at what Cleveland did. Cleveland does this massive turnaround last year, and then they make the playoffs, and probably the best Cleveland since the Belichick. And they had all those passing players on offense. They have all the guys that they could pass the ball with, but they decided we're going to be a pounding team, and look what they did. And I have a feeling the Eagles probably going to take some of that approach too.
All right, one thought every game. Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Buffalo was, I guess has Super Bowl aspirations, and Pittsburgh always does. We don't. This could be the last ride for Ben Roethlisberger.
It could be. I think it was a bad idea for the Steelers to ask a 37-year-old quarterback to throw the ball 40 times a game coming off of elbow surgery, and his arm wore out. I mean, pitching coaches could have do that, and I think the Steelers have some problems. They need to transition back to being a power team. They did that with their strong pick, so they're going to do that. But I think the schedule maker knew favors by saying you're going to go to Buffalo one. I think Buffalo is going to likely win that game because the Steelers they're a transitioning team, and this is not a good match for them to start off.
All right, over to an interesting one. You'll have Sam Darnold facing his former team in the Jets. Hey, welcome back in week number 1.
Yeah, it is going to be something to see Darnold. I think. I wonder though if the Panthers, because Bridgewater's calling up for not doing 2-minute offense and goal. Maybe they just didn't think they needed to because of they're not the type of offense that's going to need those things very often. But that's were the lowest scoring team in the league by I think 38 points by a wide margin. They just don't have on an offense yet. The defensive coach, so they're not going to be able to score many points. But you put on an offense. Darnold, MC. Robinson, DJ, you've got some talented players on that offense. So I have a feeling that Carolina's offense would be too much of the Jets.
All right. You got Sam Darnold there. Zach Wilson, the quarterback for the Jets. That's week 1. Week 1, interesting matchup here between the Vikings and the Bengals. We'll get Joe Burrow and Chase, their first matchup together. There could be a lot of points with that Vikings offense against this Bengals offense.
It could be. The Vikings, though, I think that they also want to. Last year, Zimmer said that against New Orleans, I think he's the worst defensive performance he'd ever seen as a coach. And he's been coaching for almost 30 years now. I mean, it was bad, and he realizes we got to protect better on offense, and we've got to shore up our defense. And the Bengals. I mean, Burrow. He's not getting too much preseason time. Only have 3 preseason games anymore. So how much rust is he going to have in one? I think that's the big thing because he didn't get injured early in the year, get injured late in the year, and he will be okay. But add that to Chase. I think he and Chase are going to be great as the season's along. But I just don't know how week 1 might be lost.
All right, Casey Joyner, one thought. Every game, week 1. San Francisco had a down year last year, but they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They'll take on a new regime with the Lions. So do we anticipate both these teams are better than they were a year ago?
Dan Campbell's going to try and do what Matt Patricia couldn't do for years in Detroit, turn it into a power team. What is it, neat fighting, I think it is. He wants to be that kind of a physical coach. They get Sewell, the lineman, and they want to be that, but they've got a long ways to go. They lost days, so that's not a good thing. San Francisco's got the formula. They know that it's power and tough defense, and they know. Look, we had Holmes. The Super Bowl, he beat us with play. If we would have had that type of playmaker, we'd have won. I still think they're going to have Garoppolo in week one, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them find for Trey Lance to find Packer on to be in there, and they had a smack for the road line too. So I think San Francisco's a Super Bowl contender again this year.
Casey, do me a quick favor. Exit out of the stream and then come back in here. We're still getting a little bit of a reverb from you there that's just starting to come back. We got some people texting in that are listening saying, hey, I love this segment with Casey Joyner, but we're having a little bit of problem. There's something going on. There's a little bit of a delay coming from, so we'll see if he can reconnect with us and we can't get him back in. We're looking at week 1 in the NFL. One thought on every game, and there he is. We'll bring him back in. We had a lot of people texting in saying, I love that segment, man. I want to hear it better. So we'll see if we got you better here. All right. Jacksonville, obviously Trevor Lawrence, and we don't know what this Houston team is going to look like.
No, we don't. I switched to microphones too. I don't know if that's going to help or not, but give it a shot.
There you go. You sound perfect now.
All right, great. All right, so which game are we on? Sorry.
Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence against Houston. We don't know.
We don't know on Houston. We don't know who their quarterback's are going to be. We don't know. They've lost tons of talent on defense. And Jacksonville, though, I think Jacksonville is going to turn around a lot quicker than people think. I think they've got the makings of good offense. James Robinson, when I'm breaking down running games this show, but doing some deep dive breakdowns in the running game, the only back I think who's better right now overall as far as vision, as far as hitting a hole quickly, the only back I think is better is Derrick Henry. I think that Robinson.
So why take ETN in the first round?
Because you need multiple backs. Cleveland showed it. You can't just have one back. What if Robinson gets hurt? Now you can't run that offense. And ETN's got lots of other talents too. I think they're going to go with the two-headed thing. And I think they figure that we don't want to wear Robinson out, that we don't want to make him a bell cow. Derrick Henry can be a bell cow. You can give him the ball 300 times and fine. He'll still be the same back and carry 300. I think they worry that Robinson won't be, and they figure they can get the most out of his talent. So I think there's still there'll be plenty of workload to go on for both of them. I don't think Robinson will be, maybe be an RB2 in fantasy football, but I think overall that's going to make them better. And I just like the rest of their talent too. I think that the Urban Meyer is going to get this team to. I won't say they can't be 500 because of 17 games, but I won't be surprised if they're a 6-7 win team this year at least. I think he'll make that much of an improvement.
One thought every game. It's Carson Wentz's debut with the Colts. He's taken on a team that he has known pretty well. The Seattle Seahawks played Philly a couple times, knocked them out the last time they played.
I think Carson's going to benefit from being in an offense that knows what it wants to be. I think when it came to the Eagles, for a variety of reasons, they never could figure out exactly the kind of offense they wanted to be over the last couple of years. And I think that Frank Reich has an idea exactly the kind of offense he wants to run. I think Seattle had that same problem last year. First 5 games of the year, they gave up, 30 points per game and 500 yards per game in the first 5 games of the season. They still won those because they let him throw the ball. Then 3 of the next 4 games, they have at least 3 turnovers. They lose those games where he has 3 turnovers. And they said, we got to get back to what we are. We got to get back to being a power running team that plays defense. And that's what and he doesn't want to. He wants to go back to being the MVP candidate. But I don't think they're going to do that. So I think this is going to be a smash mouth game from these teams, even though they got those great quarterbacks.
All right. Arizona, a lot of excitement out there. Obviously, Tennessee, this is a team that's been close. I don't know if they've made the improvements to get over the top, though.
I don't know either. I mean, and again, Derrick Henry is a unique talent. He stiff arms defensive linemen. I mean, literal just easy stiff arms defensive linemen, and then he outruns safeties. I'm breaking out a game last night where a Jacksonville safety has a beat on him, just a perfect angle. He just out sprints him. Like, this guy's 250 pounds, and he's out sprinting his safety by a mile. By the end of the run, he's literally getting more distance from the safety. So I mean, Derrick Henry is that kind of a talent. Arizona, though, I got to give him credit. They thought they're going to be this pass heavy offense, and they are, but they're also incorporating running their offense, and they know what they need to do in defense. They've got a very athletic defense. But adding J.J. Watt, by the way, J.J. Watt did some things in the running game last year. It was just phenomenal the way he just would attack plays. There were times when there would be a counter play to the left, and he's coming from the right and going across the line of scrimmage, beating his lineman to go underneath to get to the tackle. It's one of the most amazing plays. I call my son and say, you got to see this thing. This is insane. I think that adding that sort of talent, I think Arizona might be getting over the hump when they get that kind of production. All
right, Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Let's go to I think this Charger team's going to be pretty interesting, and the Washington football team's got a really good defense.
They do. I think the Chargers team is definitely going to be very interesting. Looking at them, I mean, They revamped their offensive line. Brandon Staley said Corey Lindsey is the best center in the league, so he was a first-team All-Pro. So they added him. They added 2 more linemen in free agency who could upgrade the line. They drafted tackle Rashawn Slater in the first round of the draft. So I mean, they've revamped our offensive line to say, hey, this is what we want to be, and they were already pretty good. So now you've got some good running backs, you've got a good quarterback, and you've got good receivers. I think they've got the potential to do some phenomenal things. Washington has a great defense, but look at the quarterback roster: Brian Fitzpatrick, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke. I mean, I think they'll cut Fitzmagic loose, but as he always shows, that works for 3 or 4 games until teams start to figure it out, and he starts throwing interceptions. And once that happens, it's never the same. So I have a feeling that Washington's going to have some problems this year because when they lost Smith, they lost more at quarterback than I think most people realize.
All right. We're looking at one thought every game, week 1. This one's interesting. Cleveland, hot team, hot name, but they're taking on Kansas City in week 1.
And this is going to be, I keep mentioning that Cleveland went with that power approach because you think about it, they've got Mayfield at quarterback, and they've got OBJ, and they have Jarvis Landry, and they have Austin Hooper, and they have David Njoku, and they've got what would be, looking at what they've got, we could throw the ball type of offense. A lot of people would take that skill set and go, okay, we're going to throw the ball out. They said, nope, we're going to power run the ball. We're going to keep doing that. And that's what they are. I think Kansas City's the same thing. Go back to their Super Bowl run. The second half of the year, they started leaning on the ground game more. It was after Mahomes got hurt when he did the sneak and he hurt his knee, and then he was out for a few games. And they came back and they said, we don't want to lean too heavily on him because we don't want him to get hurt. They ran the ball very effectively, and it worked. And it worked for them all the way through the Super Bowl. And they started doing it early last year, and then the O-line got hurt. Now the O-line is totally revamped. I think they're going to get back to what they were. They're still going to throw the ball vertical, but they're going to punch you in the mouth a whole lot more than people expect.
All right. Over at 425 in Foxborough, Miami. They've always had good games against this New England team. Different New England team. They've gone free agent route. We don't know who's going to play quarterback. Probably Cam Newton. Tua makes his year 2 debut in Foxborough.
Yep. Flores is right now. I know we're all so used to Belichick, and I know he's a fantastic coach, and I know he could do a lot of things, but I look at what Brian Flores is doing down there. He outcoaches a lot of teams. It's not just that he gets his team motivated. He outcoaches a lot of teams. When you start breaking down the tapes and you see the things doing, it's like he is a step ahead of other teams. So I think that Flores can offset the Belichick advantage. None of Belichick's assistants have ever been able to beat him on a consistent basis. They don't do very well, and they don't match up well against him. I think Flores is the exception, and Miami's got to fix some offensive line issues. Their offensive line, they have one of the worst guards in the league last year, and they've had some problems. But I think with everything that the way they're trending right now, I still think they're going to have a very good chance of winning this game.
All right. The interesting one here, will Aaron Rodgers be the quarterback or not? You've got Green Bay and New Orleans, and we know this could have been a Rodgers-Breeze matchup. Now, neither one of them might be in this game.
Maybe Green Bay should just offer Rodgers the general manager job.
Yeah. Player manager.
Exactly. They've had player coaches before. Dan Reeves did it years ago. I think Rodgers. I'm assuming that Rodgers will be there, at least for this projection. Rodgers will be there. I mean, they lost Lindsley. They haven't some problems that they have. Kevin King back after the championship game that he had. You bring this guy back. I don't understand this. They're making long-term decisions for a team that needs to play for the Super Bowl now. The thing the Saints had, though, everybody thinks they're going to change because Breeze is gone. They've been a power run heavy team for a couple of years. That's who they are. And I think they realized that Breeze is going to be moving on soon. And they said, hey, he's not going to play for 3, 4, 5 more years. He's only going to play for a couple of years. So we need to make that transition now. So they're better adjusted to be able to switch, because you look at them right now, they're not a team that's thinking, hey, we need to make a ton of changes. What they need to do is find a way, though, to get Winston, assuming they make him a quarterback, to stop throwing interceptions. And nobody's been able to do it. And I don't think it's going to do that for them either.
All right, 3 left on the docket. Denver, who could have Aaron Rodgers, taking on the Giants in New York or Jersey.
Yeah. For New York, I mean, they added Galladay, they added Kadarius Toney in the draft. They've got Saquon Barkley. They were next to last in the league in points scored. I think him tremendously move up the ladder there. When I'm looking at Denver, I just see Teddy Bridgewater, I think they're going to make him the quarterback. He passed all 7 of the Parcells rules during his collegiate career. Parcells had a list of 7 rules. He passed all 7. He looked at the history of those players. They did fantastic. A lot of them were actually franchise quarterbacks, and the ones that weren't were still very good. So they've got a lot of talented young pass catchers. I think that that if he goes there and again, they practice 2-minute in red zone that he said that they didn't practice in Carolina. They do some of those things. I think he could do quite well there. So I think Denver is going to be, I think it would be an improved team if they'll make him the quarterback, because I think he's got a skill set that no team has ever really tapped into.
All right, let's go to the first Sunday night football game of the year. Week 1, one thought every game. Justin Fields makes his debut, maybe, or Andy Dalton against Matthew Stafford making his L.A. debut.
I wonder if I've gotten the impression from the Rams that they didn't trust Goff after that Super Bowl performance, especially. They didn't say, things had to be exactly right for us to funnel some of this offense through you. We're going to be a power running team. We've got the receivers, and they just didn't think. I don't know. I just got the impression that they didn't want to let him cut loose, that they did not trust his decision-making process, that he should make an offense. And I have a feeling that Stafford is a guy who they're going to be able to. Now, can he stay healthy? He's had a back injury, each of the past 2 years? It's scheme to think you're going to have this guy stay healthy for 16 games or 17 games, but I think that they're probably going to cut him loose in a way that they didn't in Goff. And at least early in the season, I think that the Rams are going to get to a really fast start this year.
Yeah, that's interesting to see how they change their quarterback, what they asked the quarterback to do. You'll see on Sunday Night Football. I thought that was an odd pick, though, for the Sunday night game. There was a lot of good ones in there. I mean, Cleveland, Kansas City would have been interesting. Pittsburgh, Buffalo would have been interesting. I guess you could throw in Carson Wentz's debut. That's a good team. Seattle versus the Colts would have been fun. Even Miami, New England would have been interesting. But the Monday Night Football game. Now, there's only one Monday Nighter this year. They got rid of the 2 Monday Nighters because they're going to do games later on in the season, I think, on ESPN. So ESPN gets the one Monday Night Football game. I think they're on ABC now, too, by the way. And this is Ravens and the Raiders.
The Ravens are the most run-heavy team in the league, and they've got an offense that's perfect for their quarterback. They got everything that they do. When you look at everything they do, especially in the running game, most teams apply their offensive creativity. And in all honesty, they apply the vast majority of their offensive creativity to the passing game. The Ravens just say, we're just going to take our offensive creativity and apply it to the running game. They're still going to do some creative things in the passing game, but we're going to do things with our blocking schemes. We're going to do things with our motions. We're going to do things that most other teams don't do, and that's why they can run as well as they do. I think this is going to be another smash mouth game, though, because I don't know if people seem to think John Gruden's a passing coach. I mean, the guy wins the Super Bowl, and he goes in front of the crowd and is like, pound the rock, pound the rock. He's telling people, this is who I am.
Right.
And I think that's what they're going to be as a smash mouth team. If I'm taking smash mouth teams, though, I know it's a home game for the Raiders, but if I'm taking smash mouth teams, I'm probably not going to bet against Baltimore, although the Raiders have shored up their defense to be able to handle power running. So I think that's a big plus for them, because I think they had problems with that last year, and they added a couple of defensive linemen who should be able to shore things up, but I still think that I don't think they're quite good enough to handle Baltimore.
That's one thought on every week 1 NFL game, which will happen in about 5 months from now. There you go. KC Joyner at KC Joyner TFS. Follow him on Twitter. Good feedback on thank you, everybody, for letting us know that the audio was a little it sounded okay to me, kind of, but I guess going out over the air, it was a little jumbled up. But we got it fixed. It sounded great. It was fun to do. Week 1, and the whole schedule tonight will be released. And for the Eagles' full schedule, go to 97.3ESPN.com. Casey, good to see you, man.
Hey, good. Same to you, man.
All right, there he goes. Casey Joyner, the football scientist. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, when we come back, Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports will give us his spin on the Eagles' schedule, the NFL news that's out there. By the way, I also have the Phillies lineup, so I might as well share that with you guys right now as well. Phillies lineup is out for tonight's game. And let's pop that up on the screen. McCutcheon, Segura, Harper, Hoskins in the 4-hole. Bohm, Gregorius, Knapp, Herrera, Wheeler. I like that lineup better. Hoskins in the 4-hole. I like this lineup. This is the lineup, although you see no JT Realmuto. All right, we ran a little long there, but when we come back, Jeff Kerr is here to talk a little football. Hey, the schedule releases tonight, but some games are already out, including all 17 Eagles games. We'll hit them next with Jeff Kerr. All right, 531 ERA Sports Bash Wednesday. Thanks to KC Joyner. One thought every game. We do it all season long for the NFL season, and he was joyous to come back and do one thought on every game for week one. The week one schedule is out, but Geoff Kerr, I feel like there's enough leaks out there that we know the entire Eagles schedule already. All 17 games appear to be out, so we'll kind of take a look at what we know, what we think we know, what we don't know, and we will take a look at that now with Geoff Kerr from CBS Sports, who's back with us. What's going on, Geoff?
I'll tell you what, Mike, it was kind of anticlimactic when I kind of saw the schedule leaks because I know I can confirm at least 9 of those games. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right for the big I don't know if anybody saw on the Twitter today. There were like the whole Eagle schedule was leaked. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, literally all 17 games are out. The only thing we don't really know is the times of some of those games. It looks like from what we've seen anyway, and we can confirm Atlanta will be the opener, a 1:00 game. The Eagles themselves tweeted that out. Week 2, San Francisco. Week 3, Monday Night Football against Dallas. Week 4, Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Week 5, at Carolina. Week 6, Thursday Night Football at home against Tampa Bay.
Loss. I'm sorry, it is. It's a loss.
Well, you got to go. If you're saying that, Kansas City not favorable. You got.
I don't like the start of the schedule. I really don't.
The first 4 games. So let's start with what we see there. Atlanta, it's a winnable game. 49ers, you beat them last year, although it's going to be a different team. At Dallas, Monday night division game, always a coin flip, really. And Kansas City with the Chiefs coming to you.
Well, Atlanta, in my mind, is a must-win game because of how the schedule's playing out, and they're only 2.5-point underdogs at Atlanta. So, and they've had some trouble against the Falcons, no doubt, but it's a different era. My biggest concern is who the heck is going to cover Kyle Pitts on this team? I really don't know.
Who's going to cover Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley?
Well, no one covers Julio Jones. They have Byron Maxwell to cover him 6 years ago. It didn't happen. No one's covered Julio Jones since he's been.
Byron Maxwell was the worst free agent signing in the history of the team.
Oh, he was. Like, everybody on Namdi Asamoah. Namdi Asamoah actually wasn't terrible. He was bad, but he wasn't terrible. Byron Maxwell was terrible.
And Maxwell, when they said they were going to sign, I was like, dude, you're going to pay this guy money. You're going to regret every second of it. Everybody wanted Namdi. That's the difference. Nobody thought you should have signed Byron Maxwell.
Namdi was the best corner in football when they signed him. He was coming off an all-pro year. Like, he was still legitimately good. Byron Maxwell, all I heard was system guy. And I'm like, why do they want this guy again? I know they need a cornerback, but you can't get anybody else. And, the irony was, like, those are the Howie Roseman. Well, Howie Roseman obviously wasn't the GM, but they were coming off an era where they were making good free agent signings like Malcolm Jenkins, I'm trying to think of, other ones off the top of my head right now. What was the one tight end they signed? Not James Casey.
They went out and got Chris Long and Patrick Robinson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like that era. Like they were doing a lot of good, like smart free agent signs. Then they decide, let's go get Byron Maxwell. Let's go get DeMarco Murray. I'm like, seriously? Like the Eagles are going to do this to us right now?
All right, let's take a look. So that's the first pocket, Atlanta. So this is interesting. Road, home. Week 5, road, then home, then road again, and you have a Thursday nighter in there. So it's Carolina, Thursday night, Tampa Bay, at Vegas is the next little stretch of games there, and then you're at.
Are we going? By the way, are we going to Vegas?
It's funny. I had people texting in like they're already looking. I've never been to Vegas, so if I'm going to go,
well, you got to go now. You have to go.
I'm in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City. Come on. I'll tell you what. I love Atlantic City.
Talk, man.
I love Atlantic City, but when I went to Vegas, I'm like, holy, this is just a different animal. And I'm a big Atlantic City guy. I like Atlantic City, but when I went there, I'm like, what have I been missing in my life? And
right. Well,
I went there New Year's Eve, so that was even better.
Oh, wow. So you've got at Carolina, winnable game. You got Sam Darnold. Of course, the Thursday night game against Tampa Bay, very difficult. You've got at Vegas, a winnable game, and at Detroit's a winnable game.
I'll tell you what, I think they could beat Vegas. I think they could beat Detroit. I just hope they're not 1-5 going into that stretch. I really don't. Like, I feel like there are a couple winnable games in there, but I look at Kansas City, I look at Tampa Bay, and the Eagles' strength of schedule is relatively easy, but
the easiest in all the football, 430 winning percentage last year.
Yeah, like, have you noticed that they barely play any NFC East teams? They don't really play anybody until December. They
have one NFC East game, that game in week 3 against Dallas, until the last 6 weeks of the year, or is it from week 12 to week 18, they play 6 NFC East games. They got one game against the Jets and then a bye.
I don't know why the NFL does this. They've been doing this since 2006, and it drives me insane. They don't put division games early. As a football fan, I love when division games are week 2, week 3. It gets you hyped up. Like, I don't care if they play the Falcons early in the year. If they play them in the middle of the year, I get a little more excited because you know where both teams stand. But when you don't play the Giants early, when you don't play Washington early, when you don't play the Cowboys early, that bothers me. And I wish they would play Dallas in week 1 or the Giants in week 1. They haven't done that in forever.
Well, they got Dallas in week 3. Then after Detroit. So the one stretch there, Carolina, Vegas, and Detroit, they're all winnable games, but they're all on the road. So 3 out of 4 games there on the road. That's the one problem. And then the one game you have at home is on a short week against the Super Bowl champion. So that makes that stretch a little difficult. Then you got the Chargers here, at Denver, and New Orleans here. So you get 2 out of 3 at home against 2 teams that did not make the playoffs last year.
Winnable games too, all 3 of them.
Right. You got 2 games that did not make the playoffs, and then the Saints, who have a completely different quarterback.
Yeah, and here's the thing with it. The Saints game's in New Orleans, right?
No, the game's here.
Oh, the game is here. Okay, well, then I stand corrected because I was about to say that they don't play well in the Superdome, and I couldn't remember which AFC South teams they play on the road. And then, NFC South, sorry. I got the AFC South on the brain. But, that's how I'm looking at it right now. It's, okay, they beat the Saints at home last year, and the Saints are a lot better. I think the Saints are going to be good. I just don't know how good they're actually going to be with Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston in there. I guess we'll have to find out. But, yeah, those are 3 winnable games. You go to Denver, unless Denver gets Aaron Rodgers.
True.
That's a winnable game to me. That it's going to be a very good Denver's going to possess a really good defense. They have a lot of good skill position players, but I just don't know who's going to throw them the football. And the Chargers coming all the way over here. They normally do pretty good in Philly. I remember 2013, Phil Rivers had a big game here. 2005, the Eagles needed that Matt Ware blocked kick to beat them. But
you're going way back there, man. Holy moly.
You know what's something funny about that game? LT had like 12 carries for 1 yard.
I do remember that.
That was incredible.
Matt Ware, you're right. Matt Ware with the block and the scoop and the take back to the zone. All right. Week 12. This is where the schedule gets really interesting. Now, this schedule is not confirmed, but we think it's going to be accurate. I mean, I've seen like Zach Berman confirming a lot of these games from The Athletic and some others. And you said you've confirmed at least 9 of these games. Geoff Kerr, CBS Sports, with me here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. So this is where the schedule gets interesting. Week 12 at MetLife. Week 13 at MetLife against the Jets.
That is definitely confirmed. They will play the Jets at week 13. So back to back at MetLife. They don't. Did you notice this, Mike? They don't have to travel by plane the last 8 weeks of the season.
The last 8 weeks of the season, they are not on an airplane.
That's crazy. It favors them, honestly. If say they're, I don't want to say they're going to be 500, but say they're around that mark, 4-6, 4-7, whatever, 5-6. It all depends on what. Okay, and remember their bye is week 14. I can confirm that too. It's a really late bye. They could make a run here because they're not going to travel a lot. Everything's a day bus trip, and they're playing teams in their division. They are like 1 or 2 games out of this division. If the NFC East is as bad as we think it's going to be, and with 7 teams going to the playoffs again, they have a shot.
Right. So you have the Giant game on the road, the Jet game on the road in back-to-back weeks, and then you have a bye in week 14. And then it gets really interesting because you play 3 out of 4 at home, all in the division. Home against Washington, home against the Giants, at Washington, and home against Dallas. So 4 straight NFC East games.
I don't like them playing Washington twice in 3 weeks. I don't get that scheduling quirk at all. Like, I just don't get them playing the entire NFC East in December.
Right. You've got the Giants right there, too. So you play 5 of your last 6 games are inside the division. But you just said it. If you can kind of keep yourself above water, you can make up a lot of ground in those last 6 weeks of the year. Really 7 because you have a bye in there, too.
Oh, yeah, you're going to be right in the mix. Like, Washington's going to be in the mix, the Giants are going to be in the mix, and the Cowboys are going to be in the mix. So this is your chance to beat them. And maybe that's what the NFL schedule makers were thinking. Hey, you know what? All these guys, they're going to be around each other. Let's make the NFC East exciting in December because last year they pinned the NFC East against everybody else, and they kept losing. So it wasn't as fun. I remember writing articles saying, well, the NFC East won't be the worst division in history because they all face each other the last 2 weeks of the year, and they'll cancel each other out.
Well, Philly and Dallas have the 2 easiest schedules based on winning percentage from last year. Philly's winning percentage. You know, Geoff, they only face 3 teams on this schedule, 3 that had a winning record last year. That's pretty unbelievable.
I don't know how that they pulled that off, honestly. I guess that's one of the benefits of finishing last place in your division.
Well, that too, the fact that your division winner in the East only had 7 wins. So you know, because there's 4 playoff teams. Washington is 1, New Orleans, Kansas City, and Tampa Bay. They are the only playoff teams they will face. No other team on this schedule made the playoffs, and only 3 teams had a winning record last year, which makes the Eagles at .430 winning percentage against the easiest schedule by winning percentage in the entire NFL.
It's crazy when you think about this, Mike. Chiefs had a winning record, Bucs had a winning record, Saints had a winning record, and Drew Brees retired. So we don't even know how good the Saints are going to be.
Right, and that's one team that you actually beat last year. San Francisco is another team that you actually beat last year, and they're on your schedule again. So
I think the 49ers are going to be a lot better, though. They should be a lot healthier in week 2.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, last year, I remember, they had that stretch of games. It was like Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, back-to-back. They had a brutal stretch. Last year's schedule, I remember looking at it saying, man, there's some brutal – I don't see that stretch that you're like, my gosh, this is brutal. There's a lot of winnable games placed all throughout this thing. I mean, does this have the look of a worst to first type of schedule?
Well, the first 4 games I don't like, and I think this is why you have to beat the Falcons week 1 because it could snowball on you. You could be 0-2, then you can possibly lose to Dallas, go to 0-3, and then lose to the Chiefs, and you're 0-4. But if you can beat the Falcons, if you can beat the Cowboys, all of a sudden you're 2-2 through what I would consider the toughest stretch of the season, and somehow you can potentially go 2-4, 3-3 during that stretch. You're right, Mike. There really isn't a stretch where you're like, oh my God, you know, they have to beat this record or the season's over.
All right, week 1, all the games are out. These are the games. So, Geoff, which of the week 1 games are you most interested in?
I'll tell you what, when we found out the week 1 schedule for CBS, I was like, yes, Browns, Chiefs, let's go. I can't wait. Patrick Mahomes versus Baker Mayfield, rematch of the divisional playoffs. The Browns are going to be a lot better. The Chiefs are loaded. I can't wait for that 425 game. I hope I get a nice appetizer with the Eagles and Falcons there. I'll tell you what, Mike, this was surprising to me, though. The Steelers-Bills, the point spread for this, the Bills were 6-point favorites. I did not think that was going to happen because the Steelers won 11 games last year, and they should be just as good. I mean, the Bills are really good too, but that game's intriguing to me. There's a couple of Raiders and Ravens on Monday Night Football. That's one I'm excited for. And Justin Fields wins the starting job for Chicago. I'm really going to be looking forward to that Sunday night game as well.
I thought there was a lot, like you mentioned, Browns. This first week every Friday, I rank my favorite 5 games of the week. So Cleveland, Kansas City would definitely be on that list. You got Tua against this who knows what Patriots team there.
Yeah, Patriots-Dolphins is an underrated 425 matchup.
You got Carson Wentz making his debut against Seattle, so you got Wentz against Wilson. I think that Charger-Washington football team game is going to be dripping with some intrigue. That defense against Justin Herbert. You've got Sam Darnold facing the Jets in week number 1. I mean, there's a lot of
Bowl. We got it already.
Right? You got a lot of very intriguing ones. Like the Sunday night game, if Field starts, okay, but I thought there was a lot of better options for Sunday night than that one.
I'll tell you what, and I've noticed this too with Fox and with us at CBS. We've done a really good job at protecting games and having first pick because I thought it was going to be Cleveland, Kansas City, no matter what. And I think CBS said, "Oh no, this is our game, Week 1, 425 AFC matchup. We're not giving that." But here's the thing: they have two good matchups at 425. You're going to have to pick one. I don't know how I'm going to watch both these games at 425 on Sunday Ticket. It's going to be.
They got the two CBS games are Cleveland, Kansas City, and Patriots, Dolphins are the 425s, and the Fox 425s. You've got Green Bay, New Orleans, which has been a great game the last 10 years, but who knows with that game now. And then New York against Denver is the other one in that window.
Here's another thing. What 425 game is Aaron Rodgers going to be playing on? Is he going to be with the Packers or he's going to be facing the Giants?
Well, Fox is hoping that it's one of those two.
I think that's what they did. They covered their tracks.
All right, Geoff Kerr, CBS Sports. We'll have the whole schedule out tonight. You can get the London games. The Falcons are playing the Jets. The Dolphins are playing the Jags. Those two games are October 10th and October 17th. But we'll have all the quirks. There's some Christmas games. The Thanksgiving games are all out. We'll do that on Friday's show with Geoff Kerr from CBS Sports here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. All right, Geoff, thanks, man.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I'm ready for these Eagles-Giants games to be official because those are the two I'm circling on the calendar.
Absolutely. They are late in the year, it looks like. That's what the leaks are saying anyway. Week 12, late in the season. Geoff Kerr, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Good to have him as always. We'll do it again on Friday. A lot of football conversation on this Sports Bash Wednesday. Tomorrow on the show, Adam Kaplan's here and Todd Rank is back. We'll do the Rank Report at 5. Don't go away. All right, here we go. By the way, Joel Embiid and Matisse Thybulle both questionable for Thursday night against the Miami Heat. So you got that to come back from this break here on the Sports Bash. All right, here we go. Let's get a couple of audio cuts from today. And how about Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, who joined us way back there in the 2 o'clock hour? We've been talking football. Mike, what about the NFC East?
I think the division's going to be better than it was last year. I mentioned that Prescott's coming back for Dallas. I also think that the Washington football team and the Giants have been bad for so long that they've been able to add some quality players, and eventually they're going to take a step forward. I think both teams won, 6 games last year. I think they're going to take a step forward into that 8 or 9 range. So I see the division winner having 9 wins, maybe 10, but mostly 9.
All right. So is the NFC East going to be better?
It's an interesting perspective to me because, I think sometimes we overlook that, we can't have everything that happened last year as be totally, what is going to happen in the future because of all the issues we dealt with last year in our world. So there's a possibility that we may just be underrating the NFC altogether. And last year may have just been a product of a lot of things hurting all those teams last year between injuries and everything else.
I definitely think the NFC East is going to be much better than it was last year. I mean, Dallas was destroyed by injuries. Philadelphia destroyed by injuries. Washington, people forget, they had 4 different quarterbacks play last, 3 or 4 different quarterbacks. None of them were any good, and they were 7-9. They got a better quarterback, and they've added to their – I didn't like their pick on defense. That doesn't mean the kid can't play.
Correct.
They got a really good player. I just didn't think they needed to pick that player.
It was a luxury pick.
Exactly. Their defense was number 2 in the league. They added to what was already one of the best defenses in the league. So I think they're going to be better. I think the Giants are the wild card in terms of what are they, because I think if you're ranking the quarterbacks, they have the worst.
Yes, I agree.
Casey Joyner, what about the Washington football team?
Washington has a great defense, but look at the quarterback roster. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke. I mean, I think they'll cut Fitzmagic loose, but as he always shows, that works for 3 or 4 games until teams start to figure it out and he starts throwing interceptions. And once that happens, it's never the same.
So he kind of agrees a little bit, but it didn't sound like he was boisterously putting Washington as the repeat, because how many teams repeat as the champion?
That, and also the fact that he brought up Fitzpatrick's history, the fact that he has these runs, but then teams figure him out and he can't adjust. And you have to wonder,
that was an interesting point.
How does Washington adjust to him not adjusting?
Dave Weinberg, it's a Weinberg Wednesday. I know he's chomping at the bit to talk a little bit about this schedule, right? Everybody wants to kind of give their opinion when the schedule comes out. It feels like football, baby.
Rookie minicamps today, too.
Dave Weinberg tweeted earlier, too. Can't wait to see when the Eagles are playing in Vegas. Well, now we know. What did you say? Rookie minicamps?
Rookie minicamps today.
Today?
Yeah.
Today was the start of the rookie minicamp.
The guys
I know they all came in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow's the first day they're on the field, though.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, wait, I thought that was tomorrow. Yeah, I saw they all were flying in today. I did see that. All right, Dave Weinberg is coming up at 6:20 on game night.